I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Council of the City of Southfield, conducted as a committee of the whole meeting for April the 18th, 2016 at 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Ms. Seymour?
Present.
Mr. Mandelbaum's going to be late this evening. Ms. Morris?
Present.
Mr. Fracassi?
Here.
Mr. Brightwell?
Here.
Mr. Cruz?
Present.
Mr. Frazier?
Here.
You have 6 members present.
Council, I've just been asked, because there's some personal issue, if I would change item 2 and item 1 around, so that item 2 would go first, and if Mr. Black would come to the microphone to introduce the item.
Oh, sure. No, I will take that.
And I apologize to Hamilton Anderson for delaying their presentation.
Good evening, everybody. Hopefully this will be relatively quick. I appreciate the modification of the agenda. Parks and Recreation Department was approached by Sharina Jones of Think Beyond the Chair to fund the manufacturing and installation of an upgrade to the existing playground or a new build of a fully accessible playground at our Beech Woods Park. Think Beyond the Chair has a vision to provide social activities, events, support and advocacy for people with disabilities. They recognize the importance of ADA compliance and support the goal of universal accessibility. They strive to build confidence, independence, and role models. Beech Woods has truly become the home for accessible programming. We already have wheelchair basketball and adaptive golf programs at that location. In addition, the city has addressed the ADA needs of the community with projects at the Mary Thompson Farm, Senior Gardens, Beech Woods Center entrance pathways, and the long-awaited build-out of the Miracle League concession stand. This proposal is a natural fit for our current program offerings and gives families a place to play where all family members can participate. Think Beyond the Chair has secured the funding for the manufacture of the play structure, delivery, and supervisory costs. They are working with Chrysler Fiat through their Motor Citizens volunteer program to build a play structure along with the assistance of the Parks and Recreation staff. This group has done several playgrounds around the southeast Michigan area and would like to complete this project by May 26th of this year. With that, I'd like to introduce Sharina Jones.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Shreya Jones with Think Beyond the Chair. I'm with Think Beyond the Chair, and I just want to tell you about our accessibility as the key program. Think Beyond the Chair, we have several focuses: peer mentoring, accessibility, social integration. So this falls under our accessibility program, where we offer our services to local businesses, schools, and parks and recreation. So our goal until 2016 to 2020 is to make playgrounds across the state of Michigan accessible. And we're talking about accessible and inclusive. So when you think about accessibility, you might think of, currently right now, there is a bridge, I like to call it the bridge to nowhere at their playground, because it literally takes you up just to a platform, and there's nothing that a person with disability or in a wheelchair could play with or anything. So you're basically just stuck there. And we thought about getting standalone structures, but the issue with that is that it's not inclusive. So if you don't have someone to play with you, you might be by yourself playing. And we really focus not just on accessibility, but the inclusion. Myself, I got shot when I was 5 years old, so I can give you 2 different perspectives. One, as a child with a disability, playing on a standalone playground or a structure with nobody else playing with you. It's not fun, you feel outcasted. And then now, as a new mother, I think about, how will I be able to, help my child if my child fell or anything? Would I be able to get to them and help him out? So that's 2 different perspectives. Our program, I reached out to Fiat Chrysler Automotive, to Fusion Medical, to Mount Smith Law, and all of them were kind enough to donate to our program. And the reason we chose Beechwood is because this is our 5th year we're going to be hosting our Party in the Park. It's July 16th this year. And so that's a yearly event that we host there. And Beechwood treats us good, so we'd like to treat the city back good. So all of the funding has already been secured for this, and we're just looking for an approval.
Any, do you have any more, Mr. Block?
No, thank you, Mr. President. In the council packets, there was included a site map, an artist rendering of the actual play structure. In terms of, there's an existing piece at the Beech Woods Park where our own internal staff is going to take down that piece and level the area, make it ready for Sharina's organization to do the build on May 26th.
Are there any, Mr. Perkowski?
Yeah, Doug, I was asking you prior to the meeting about how big the structure was. I was, I'm familiar with, because we just recently got one over at Southfield Christian for the
Right.
play yard. It was quite expensive, and this seems like the 25,000 is, in relation to what we buy to the city, seems kind of low. And so I just want to make sure that we have a good, solid product, well-made, and that we have the matting that goes underneath it so that it has access for wheelchair.
The actual MSRP is $42,000. We are a nonprofit, so we have asked them for a grant to lower the price, which they did lower it for us. And the total is actually closer to $30,000, because we had to pay about $2,000 to $3,000 for delivery, an additional $2,000 for a supervisor from the playground company.
In addition to what Sharina just mentioned, it's one piece out of several other pieces that are going to remain in place at Beech Woods.
And I'm for this, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cruz?
I'm definitely for this, but I want to thank Sharina for bringing this to us, bringing this to the city. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for children in our area and so forth. Just one other thing that we mentioned in the President's meeting the other day about any additional costs that might be incurred due to the new piece being here. It doesn't seem that that's going to be an issue. Is that correct? That's
Correct.
okay.
The maintenance will be conducted within the normal purview of the Parks and Rec Department, specifically Park Services, and we have 2 certified playground inspectors on our staff at the present time.
And with the donors that assisted with this, are they seeking any type of signage or?
Yes,
Something
just
different.
it won't be extremely invasive. You won't get calls from NORAD and Santa Claus, but it'll be a small
Kind of
sign.
placard on there that
Correct.
acknowledges it, which I think is fine. That's all.
Okay. Mr. Bragwell?
Thank you. Thanks, Serena. And you definitely have some impressive resume here. This wheelchair, 2011, this second runner, this wheelchair USA, 2012. That's commendable. And Doug, just briefly, you might have touched on it briefly, I was distracted, but what type of assistance is required from the PR staff?
We'll have Koska Chanek, Max Halpern, they're 2 full-time Park Services people. I've also made arrangements with the acting building official, Mark Pilot, to be available if need be during the construction, as well as to sign off on the once the play structure is completed.
Okay, that's fine. I'm fully supportive of it. I'm supportive of you as an individual. I appreciate it.
Ms. Seymour?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, people like it. Do we need people out there when the parks people out there when the kids like when it's open? Or do you have any, there's no need for special people? It's a great idea. Thank you for doing this. I mean, this is great. Kids need something like that.
Okay. Ms. Morris?
I too am in support. I read your bio and it's just awesome. And thank you for helping the city of Southfield to, improve the efforts for the youth. I was just wondering if, you'd be interested in looking at working with us on some of the other parks.
Absolutely.
In the future.
Yeah.
So it's just an awesome thing that you've done here and,
Are there any other questions? I do have just a question. The design, at the top of the structures are blue designs. Are those functional or are those just designs?
Oh, no, that's just design. They won't be playing up there. Is that what you're
Okay.
saying? Nobody will be climbing up there?
No, I'm not climbing or
Oh.
anything, but I thought maybe they would be, for instance, the ring, if they'd be using that to throw a ball through or something, you know, I'm sure they will whether they're supposed to or not.
I don't think that's.
But it's just a
The design.
just design, okay. And I presume that the material is UV proof, so it doesn't bleach out with the sun and all. So
Yeah,
the
discuss
maintenance
that.
would be very minimal on it.
We did a site visit about 4 or 5 weeks ago and brought up that very same issue, which colors they prefer to use in the industry for the reasons you just mentioned.
Okay. I also support this, and we'll put this on the 25th, meeting of the 25th. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And thank all your guests for coming here this evening. Yes. Good thing, because we wouldn't have voted for it and do it now.
Now we'll go back to item number 1.
Good evening. As stated in the request for a proposal, Southfield is in need of a centrally located, pedestrian-friendly, mixed-use development in the heart of the Southfield City Center District. To help attract and retain professionals, to create and maintain a sense of place, and to spur economic development. Achieving a successful development vision for the city-owned property requires a framework to guide decision makers and the investment. We will discuss tonight this framework and how it should be integrated into Southfield's active plans and align anchor neighborhood and citywide priorities to meet the established development goals. Our consultants, Hamilton Anderson Associates and Gibbs Planning Group, will give a presentation and ask for your insight on this important project. With us tonight is Amy Chesterton, the project manager for Hamilton Anderson, as well as Bob Gibbs, principal with Gibbs Planning Group. They'll take you through the agenda, a couple of PowerPoint presentations, and engage you tonight. And then I have a little bit of a wrap-up, and I'll be happy to answer any questions after they're done with the presentation.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Terry, I didn't bring the Hamilton's book with me, but there's a timeline on that, what was supposed to be done by certain times. Can you tell me where we're at? And
Yes, I'll have Amy she's going to talk a little bit about scheduling, and then if you still have any questions, I'll be happy to jump in.
Hi guys, how are you?
Could you give us your name and business address for the record?
Sure, Amy Chesterton, and I'm the Director of Planning at Hamilton Anderson, and we are at 1435 Randolph Street in Harmony Park, Detroit, Michigan. For those it's Harmony Park, not Paradise Valley, for those of you that are like Detroit proper natives. So I think the last time we met with you it was cold out and snowing, and we were talking about what we were getting ready to do. As Terry mentioned, we are in I would say that we are probably about 20% done with the project right now, and we've started with the analyses, and Bob's going to talk about the most critical step, which is what's going to frame our decision making, which is based on the economic study. So we're going to quickly talk about the plan, which I think Terry did, and before the holidays last year, I talked to you a little bit about some of just the best practices in planning and why we're doing this, why you as a community got together and decided that we really needed some very intensive placemaking alternatives in the city. So I'm going to try to breeze through that fairly quickly. I want to talk a little bit about case studies and best practices for communities, both large and small, that have done this sort of town center planning. And then Bob's going to talk about the market study findings, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the stakeholder meeting that was held a few weeks ago. What was the date of that, Terry?
March 19th.
Oh, see, you know, March 19th that we did right across the street here at the city library. I think a few of you crashed it, so you might see some of this presentation, but for the most part, we had a really excellent turnout, and a really excellent turnout. We got a lot of good input, and I want to talk to you a little bit about what was discussed there as well. So of course, as Terry mentioned, the purpose of this plan, here we are sitting right here across the street, is to create this vibrant, walkable, mixed-use place. But the planning should be based upon market reality. And so these are things that we're working through, but of course you know very well the potential of this site. When we talk about your actual city center boundary versus the project site directly across the street from the municipal campus, and all of these adjacencies between Lawrence Tech, your transit center, and of course all the improvements that have happened on Evergreen Road. When we zoom in and you take a look at that magic quarter mile, which depending on how quick a foot you are should be a very short walk, you have existing, what you see here in yellow, a lot of parking structures. You've invested a lot of money in a lot of parking structures for a place that isn't very dense. But within sort of that quarter mile walk, you have, of course, the parking structure over here. You have a 4-level parking deck off of Civic Centre Drive. You have another 4-level parking deck here. Those are all presumably built to service the office that's nearby. You have your public space, and then of course we have our major connectors. These are all things that you know, but when we take a look at the way this site is set up, there's some obvious connections that I think can be drawn, as well as some obvious frontages that we're going to be taking a look at. And then of course, we don't need to remind you about the recent development, but it's something that we're looking very heavily at. Of course, the Evergreen Road construction project, the pedestrian amenities, and all of the other elements that Terry talked about in detail at the last meeting. And all of that is being informed by things such as your master plan, the non-motorized plan, and the economic profile. So this is one of the things that we talked about when we last met, but it's extremely important. One of the things that's either a challenge or an opportunity, depending how you look at it, is of course that 100,000 people that are coming to work every day to work in Southfield, or almost 100, about 93,000 people that are coming every day. And those people are coming from somewhere else to come work here, and that capture, that capture either from residential, from retail, or even from park space. And 24,000 of them live in Southfield and are employed someplace else. Within that, you have about 4,100 people that live and work in Southfield. And as we continue to really start to move the needle, is that you? Are you the only person? You're one of the 41. Anyone else live and work in Southfield?
We all live in Southfield.
Well, you're right, but work from your job you get a check from. Do you work in South? Yeah, that's the question. So one of the things that from a quality of life standpoint is we really try to move the needle up and think about that is when we can start to move that needle up, that 4,000, maybe 5 years from now is 10,000. That you're starting to increase the number of people that actually live and work in Southfield. We're really doing something when we talk about increasing quality of life for residents, and attracting and offering a very attractive place to work for others that maybe would come to work here in the future. And then some of the more general statistics, your total population we've talked about, your jobs, your age distribution, and as well as the fact that your bachelor's degree or higher is trending above, obviously, our state averages, and the fact that you only have 8% that are only with a high school graduation rate. So that looks really good for retailers, for offices, and these are things that you know. And a lot of this, we've talked about several times before, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands a lot of the premises that we're starting this project with from a best practice standpoint is, of course, folks, like Chris Lineberger, are continuing to say that these walkable places have pent-up demand. We can't build them fast enough. When we can provide these walkable environments, they are being absorbed, both from a retail standpoint, from an office standpoint, and from a residential standpoint. And this new workforce, and one of the conversations that we had at the stakeholder meeting a few weeks ago, you know, the reality is you have a lot of really tall, shiny office buildings with lots of parking around them, and the studies are trending that the future generation does not want to work in those buildings. So, you know, what are we going to do with that? And that's a reality that I think that we really need to be serious about and continue to take a look at. It doesn't mean nobody's going to work at them, but it means probably the brightest and the best, and some of the more cutting edge industries are really going to want to be in these walkable places. Doesn't mean you're going to lose everybody to Midtown. It doesn't mean that nobody's going to want to be in these places, but we have to be competitive, and let's just not build any more of them, because we're going to be challenged with trying to fill them up over the next 10, 20 years. So this new workforce no longer wants to be located in a single-use office park. Again, it's not a doomsday, but we just need to be we need to be very realistic about how we're going to occupy those spaces in the future. And of course, this notion that, of course, it's good to have a solid economic climate, but really focusing on place, really taking a look at making sure that you have place-based amenities as you go forward. And this notion that even, it's not just folks that are in Midtown, the Corktown, the CBD, that want these place-based amenities. Suburbanites want them as well. They want to drive to them and then walk around in them, but that's something that's still definitely wanted going forward. And of course, you guys know the story that we're losing 2/3 of our college graduates. Everybody knows that story of, you know, where of coming back, we're sending them off to Michigan State. We usually lose them to, you know, some of the bigger cities, the Chicagos, the New Yorks, et cetera.
And even Dallas.
And Dallas, as Terry drove his daughter down to Dallas a couple of weeks ago. We're going to talk about Dallas in a second. Yeah, but it's that place-based, and so these college-educated children are picking where they want to work first, what city they want to live in, and then they'll find a job. And again, these are scenarios that I'm sure that if you've been reading the news, these should not be new to you. The same notion of how we're going to attract and retain talent. I'm going to go through this really quickly so we've got time. And then placemaking. I mean, really trying to think about from a place-based standpoint. You've done a marvelous job with your road improvements in Evergreen Road, and we really try to, it's a very long environment. It's the right environment, it's very long, and we try to think about what is your brand going to be if you're going to create this district center? What do you offer? Will your brand live up to what you're offering? Paying close attention to what that's going to be is going to be really important. So I'll go through this. So when we talked last time about the group, and you know, I offered to this group as well as what are Southfield's walkable places? If I was to say, you know, quick name 3 walkable places in Southfield, what do you think you would come up with? Do any of you have any ideas? That was about the reaction that we got a few weeks ago. People definitely praised the improvements on Evergreen Road. It's a place to walk along, but it's not necessarily a place to walk to. So putting these walkable places on the map, in addition to staying very mindful of these, the office environment that you've created, are going to be important going forward. Not one? You guys can't think of one walkable place? Civic Centre, right, walking around. Okay, we got one. I didn't want to leave this slide without having one of them. And Bob will do a much better job at giving you some anecdotal information on this, but the reality is when you build these places, they just perform better. They are more, and the numbers, depending on where you are, from a retail perspective, from an office perspective, they perform better. If you put the same dollars in and just plan it in a walkable environment, they're going to perform better economically. So I just quickly want to walk through. We know now, okay, Amy, I've heard you a million times. We know it's good to be walkable. We have to be mindful for future generations. As we go forward with this town center property, walking through what's right for Southfield. We know we're not going to be a midtown. We know we're not going to be this quaint little village in New England, but what is right for us? Sort of that Goldilocks mentality of a town center. I just want to quickly walk through a handful of other town centers and there's different ways that you can do it. Bob's going to talk about this a little bit. This is University Place, which is in Washington, and University Place is located. What's the name of the actual city?
The city of
Is University Place. One of the things that's interesting about this is they were getting ready to build a new municipal complex. They were going to build a new library and a new municipal complex, and the notion was, well, why don't we be the center of it? Why don't we be that walkable place? And what the city did was they went through and actually created the town square that they wanted, and just happened to make all of the amenities, the instant amenities, to be the library, to be the police department, to be the place where you collect your water bill, and on the first floor, fill it up with retail. That retail, the library itself immediately became the anchor, and as they developed and went through, they have Whole Foods. Everybody knows there's usually a celebration when a Whole Foods opens up. So they then had the library and the Whole Foods, which really became their anchors as they walked through. They have, as I said, 2 anchor tenants, and about 200 residential units that are sprinkled in, and this is a constantly evolving project, but very similar to what you have. They had Bridgeport Road before, they made major improvements, and then when they built their new municipal complex, they built it in more of a walkable fashion. This notion that we're going to fill it with retail, we're going to have places for people to shop, and more importantly, we know that other retail is going to come in. It's also very similar to your location, the nucleus for their festivals, and then of course these grocery anchors. So this would be like their Evergreen Road that goes out here, and they built in their new sort of civic square with retail on the first floor, the Whole Foods over here. This is an older aerial, and then specifically designed in out parcels for the city and for the retail to develop around it. So that's one way of doing it. Bethesda Row. Bethesda, of course, is very TOD, very transit-oriented development. You have a lot of transit coming and going along there, around there. And at the time, they knew that they didn't want to have more strip and more of what was happening at the time. They actually have just a handful of anchor tenants. One of them happens to be a bookstore. And several other retail pieces. They have a little under 4,000 square foot of retail, but it's almost dead on to your 8 acres from a comparison standpoint. Again, very TOD oriented, and it was a private development, but there was public planning assistance for infrastructure and the planning as well. We'll go through that. So you've got your active street level, all the things that we know that we want. A very interesting arcade that was developed. The Barnes & Noble acted as an anchor, and you can kind of see the way this particular building was existing, the way they built around it, and you have almost, like I said, exactly 8 acres where they could have just continued to do more strip development, which is what was happening at the time. Addison Circle, which is where we lost Terry's daughter to. The key planning here was to avoid, again, a lot of that sort of isolated development that was happening in North Texas at the time. They really wanted to come out strong with a placemaking amenity, and this has a very large park. If any of you are familiar with this area, you'll see a lot of pictures of it. But the retail, the residential units is exponential here. You have almost 4,000 residential units in Addison Circle, but these buildings are truly organized around their public spaces with a lot of on-street parking, and of course, it started with about $9 million of city that the city invested from their general fund. And working through, this is sort of a shot of that large open public space with a lot of public art, a lot of the festivals, and this is kind of gives you a glimpse of some of the residential that's around there. We take a look at it. This is a very, very big site. It's important for us to keep scale in mind here, but you can kind of start to see the arterials that were created. And if you look around the edges, you know, this is a lot of stuff that you guys have going on. You know, it wasn't this perfect new urbanist environment. It was something that they created essentially out of thin air. And then, of course, this is just I can say this because I'm from Columbus, this is a glorified shopping mall. And when you talk about places such as Easton or other similar lifestyle centers, but this is very successful. It was very well done, it was very well executed. And when you take a look at private versus public development, this is a private partnership that developed. There's plenty of anchor tenants. But what's interesting here is that the phases are still continuing. It started with great success in 1999, and and additional infill phases, including residential, very real residential, is still continuing in Easton. You take a look at, again, a lot of the lifestyle centers, the Partridge Creek type, it's on another scale when you take a look at how this is happening, but they're all geared around public spaces. And this is sort of, again, something that was created, a sort of walkable environment that was created where there were none. So you can do it public-led, you can do it private-led, you can do it public-private partnership-led, or you can just let the private sector take over. And there's lots of ways to go about it, but these all have these same key principles of walkability. Knowing that you're going to need a very viable anchor from a retail perspective. And when we take a look at scale, here's your site, this is all relative to each other. Southfield is about 8 acres, and you start to see where some of these align from a scale perspective. We want to make sure that we're not biting off more than we can chew. Because again, the main purpose of this process that we're going to take you through is assuming that at the end of this, you will probably release an RFP for a developer. We want to make sure that we're not going to say, developer, here, do what's right for you. We want to say, do what's right for Southfield, and we want to make sure that it's all aligned for a common vision as we go along the way. And when we talk about these best practices, we're going to walk through some of what Bob has found so far based on what is viable from the market, what the market is telling us from a residential standpoint, because we know that there's a lot of aptitude out there to infill with new residential beyond just the single family, and what's viable, what we can absorb from a retail perspective. So I'm gonna have Bob come up and talk about some of these.
If you'd give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Robert Gibbs. My office is at 240 Martin Street, Birmingham, Michigan.
Thank you.
And developing retail to make other real estate areas more valuable has been common in the U.S. for a long time. In the 1920s, a lot of new towns were built. The commercial part was built so that developers could sell office and residential space. Lake Forest outside of Chicago, Illinois, for example, this entire commercial center was built to make the office and residential more valuable, because people like the idea of being able to walk to shop and walk to dine. There's something now called the Starbucks effect, where if you have a house located within a quarter mile of a Starbucks, it's worth about 15% more than a house that's not. This is so important right now that developers are buying, they're finding out where Starbucks is opening new stores, and they're buying all the homes that they can buy around the Starbucks because they're seeing this rapid increase in value. There's also something known as the Whole Foods effect. Whole Foods raises property values for rental apartments by about 12%. And what's happening now is that when Whole Foods goes into a new project, they actually are asking for part of the equity to get part of the value of that. This is what University Place that Amy spoke about earlier by Tacoma. We have been advising this city for about 15 years. It took about 10 years for the city to get this project off the ground, even though they owned all of the real estate. Walkability is very important right now. There's something on your iPhone called the Walk Score, and it's an independent group that measures how walkable every place is in the United States. And they rate everywhere from 1 to 100 points. If you have a high walk score, if you have a walk score of 85 or higher, then real estate values are worth a lot more. If you have a low walk score, they tend to be worth less. The walk score right outside of here on Evergreen is a 46. which is a little on the low side. A walk score for downtown Birmingham is a 94, for example. This
That
walk-
probably hasn't been updated though, since the new improvements, right?
It probably has been. It could be slightly higher because of the new improvements.
Yeah.
And it's not very perfect because the walk score doesn't measure the quality of the walk. It only measures things that you can walk to. So you'll get points for being able to walk to the library, the city hall, the restaurants, the office, public transit, but it doesn't measure the quality. So yours is probably artificially low. The walk score right here, though, right now is about, I think it's around 46, it might be around a 50. We think with this town center that you could have a walk score of the high 80s to the low 90s. Millennials like places with high walk scores. Real estate investors like places with high walk scores where you can have a residence and you can walk to shops and retail. So much so that real estate investment trusts are beginning to invest in places with walk scores of 85 or higher. This is a study by Chris Lineberger that shows how much higher each real estate class is worth when you have a walk score of 85 or higher. For example, homes sell 86% faster in communities with a walk score of 85 or higher. Retail rates are 47% higher, office rents are 40% higher, residential rents are 30% higher, and cap rates, the cost of borrowing money, is 8% less when you have a walk score of 85 or higher. My son, for example, works for an investment banking company in Philadelphia, and his first assignment was to find all of the spots in America that had a walk score of 90 or higher. That was the first cutoff for this company's investment portfolio, is they only wanted to go to places that had high walk scores. As Amy said, the conventional suburban office parks where you have high-rise suburban offices surrounded just by parking and just by parking decks are going out of fashion. It's hard for leading employers like IBM right now to attract the best talent out of college if all they can offer them is an office and a chance to drive to Chili's for lunch. The creative class right now wants to be able to walk downstairs from the office, and they want to be able to go to a variety of restaurants, and they want to be able to live there. So this is Tyson's Corner, one of the original suburban office parks outside of Washington, D.C., and it's now infilling its spaces with high-density residential, light rail, restaurants, retail, and such. And this is what's happening across the country, is office districts like yours are infilling like you want to do. 88% of American households today prefer living in walkable areas. About 12% prefer living in suburban areas. 75% of the households will have no children by 2025. Last year, 50% of the households in the U.S., 50% of the new babies in the U.S. were born to single parents. We're getting to a point where there's going to be very small, very little need for 3 and 4 and 5 bedroom homes. So much so that by 2030, the attached homes like the townhomes you have will have a demand for 15 million more attached homes. There will be demand for 40 million more small lot homes. And there's going to be a surplus of 23 million too many large lot 4-bedroom homes. It's anticipated that by 2030, the large 4-bedroom colonial homes will go down in value somewhere between 20 and 30% because millennials are not interested in moving there and baby boomers are finding they don't need 4 bedrooms once the children leave the house. There's a big demand for these small lot cluster homes. These are homes that are on very tiny lots. This is a project that we planned on Lasser Road and 13 Mile and Lasser and 13. And these are little lots. These are little 30 and 40-foot lots surrounded around a square. There's a tremendous demand for luxury apartments where the apartment is finished like a nice condominium. It has granite countertops and stuff. but it's built on top of retail. In our market study for the town center site, we have found a demand for about 200 of these apartments that are supportable currently, and a demand for about 50 townhome, 50 condominiums, which I'll talk about in a minute. When you develop mixed-use retail, when you put housing on top of retail, it's very important that the retail succeed and not look like this. If the retail underperforms, if you have businesses that are constantly going out of business, if they're not very good looking, then nobody will want to live on top of those businesses. Nobody will want to work on top of those businesses. So whatever we plan for new retail, we're going to try very hard to make sure that the retail is sustainable and that it be a spot that can attract lively shops. Parking is the new luxury right now. Small retailers, the small independent retailers depend on on-street parking. We're probably going to propose some streets in the town center, and we'll probably be proposing on-street parking. We estimate that every on-street space can generate about $150,000 to $200,000 a year in retail sales. The shopping centers of the 1980s and 90s were enclosed malls. These were popular with women that didn't work. They had husbands that went to work, and they had a lot of free time, a lot of social time, and they would go to the mall, and they would get all dressed up and go to the mall. They would go to almost every store. So the shopping was their main social activity. And the malls loved this because they would go to almost every retailer. This shopper doesn't exist anymore. This shopper tends to be now either a single parent, a divorced parent, somebody going to night school, and people are just too busy to shop right now. And when they shop, it's considered more of a chore than a social activity. Because of that, this new shopping center concept called the Lifestyle Center was invented. This allows the shopper to go in and out of the center very quickly. It doesn't require a 1 or 2 hour commitment like an enclosed mall does. And we only put in the retailers that are very popular for these tenants, for the shoppers. The lifestyle centers are being built all over the United States, and they always include a street, and they always include a row of parking on 1 or 2 sides of the street. The lifestyle centers that were built without streets, that were pedestrian only, almost always failed or greatly underperformed. So we're probably going to propose streets, and this is necessary for the small retailer. We did the Village of Rochester, and we did the plan for the Village of Rochester, for example, in Rochester Hills. And it took a lot of convincing at the time of the city to allow us to put in a street without on-street parking, but that was considered essential for the retailers. We'll be looking at housing. We'll be looking at the types of housings that can be built. This is a town center in Connecticut that was built for a university town. A lot of the town centers that are built tend to fail. We work for a lot of banks that inherit failed town centers. We help them with the workout, and we generally find that these town centers fail because they broke a lot of fundamental retail rules. I used to work for the Taubman Company. I was Al Taubman's urban planner for his centers, and we know what it takes to make these work, and we know what it makes, what causes them to fail. One of the reasons a lot of these fail is that they build too many shops without an anchor. As a rule of thumb, you can't build more than 25,000 square feet of shops without an anchor, like a grocery store. Now, we found that the town center site can support an anchor like a grocery store, but if we can't get an anchor there, then we'll recommend that you only have 25,000 square feet or less of retail. Town centers in southeast Michigan have gotten a very bad name because of this. This is Bloomfield Park. It was built up at Square Lake and Telegraph. It came out of the ground and it failed. And there was about $350 million that's been lost to this town center, and it's now going to be, it was now bought for pennies on the dollar, and it's going to be torn down, and they're going to build a strip center instead. And because of this colossal failure, and it failed really because of the recession, not because of the plan. It was a beautiful plan. It failed because it opened right at the beginning of the recession. They had all sorts of national tenants signed here. Because of this failure, most Southeast Michigan developers don't want to build mixed-use walkable town centers. We do work for a lot of the Southeast Michigan developers, and what they tell us is that the new urbanism or walkable town centers doesn't work in Michigan. They'll admit that it works in all other 49 states, but for some reason Michiganders don't like to walk. They feel they don't like to walk along sidewalks. They don't understand why Birmingham works, but they feel that walkable town centers work primarily because of Bloomfield Park. By the way, they tell me that all of their children are moving to New York and Philadelphia and major walkable cities, and they don't understand that either. But there will be some resistance when we get to the point of finding developers, especially if we pick from just Southeast Michigan. There have been a number of proposals, well-done proposals, by other cities and other institutions that were rejected by local developers. The international retailers love walkable town centers. H&M, for example, Uniqlo, these are retailers that are strong anchors, 10 to 20,000 square feet in size, and we think it's plausible that you could attract these in the town center. We think it's also plausible that you could actually open, and if you can't get a grocery store, that you could open a public market. Public markets are like virtual grocery stores. They're the same size as a small grocery store, but they're enclosed and they have small vendors. They have vendors that sell fish and poultry and cheese and baked goods and prepared foods. And Eastern Market is sort of a sample of one, but the public markets that we're talking about are more lively. They're open 6 or 7 days a week. Columbus, Ohio has one called the North Market. There's a new one in Flint, Michigan. Flint has a public market. And as an alternative, you probably could support a public market here. This would be a wonderful anchor in your town center, and it would become a major must-see tourist destination for people coming to Southeast Michigan. We'll be looking at other sorts of anchors, maybe large format retail anchors. The new thing for large retail anchors is to surround themselves with small shops. So instead of just having a big box all by itself surrounded by parking lots, they're taking the big box and they're surrounding them with small shops, so that on street level you just see small shops. You don't really see the size of the anchor. Target and Walmart, for example, are building new concepts like this. It is plausible that we could get a city Target here, even though there's one not that far away. These tend to be about half size of the conventional Target. We think it'll be important to develop a nice walkable street scene. We'll be writing some design guidelines for the storefronts and such. We are estimating the average sales will be north of almost $300 a square foot per year. That's about average for the industry. The average mall has sales of about $275 a square foot per year. Taubman has sales much higher. Taubman sales tend to be almost $1,000 a square foot per year. Urban design will be important in this. We're going to emphasize high design standards, high streetscape standards, lighting and landscaping. It doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. This is Worth Avenue in Palm Beach. Their sidewalk is just concrete, but it's very well designed concrete with saw cut joints and stuff. And their streetscape's really grass. So we'll want good design, but not necessarily expensive. We'd like to see good signage. The better retailers right now want to go to cities that have high design standards. You may want to consider having a special design standard for this district. You'll see a number of plans that I'm sure we're going to come up with. One might be based on the Lake Forest plan, the one I showed earlier in Chicago. That's where you take your main street, like this could be Evergreen, and then you put a small square off of the highway with shops around the square. We have a number of these that have been built in the country. University Place is built based on this model. This works really well because the small shops get the visibility they need off the highway, and then it creates a really nice public realm where you can have civic events and public events. A Seaside in Florida. in the Panhandle of Florida was sort of built on that. This is their highway, and they built a little U-shaped square around. Sometimes these can be built double deep. You'll hear the planners talk about liner buildings. Liner buildings tend to be about 20 to 25 feet deep. They're very shallow. The normal store is 60 feet deep. And so instead of making it real deep, we put in these shallow stores. These are highly popular for leasing because they're smaller square footages, and it allows us to hide the parking lots and still create a walkable street. The luxury malls are doing very well right now nationally. The luxury retailers are doing very well. We like to see town squares in our town center. Town squares are, and you have a wonderful town square here, but we'll probably be proposing a small town square on this side. This is City Place in West Palm Beach, Florida. This is a very early model. They have a nice town plaza and then a nice variety of department stores. Our retail analysis, we finished the market study for the retail analysis. We estimate that the town center site can support about 138,000 square feet of new retail right now. That's above and beyond what's there. And it would generate about $40 million a year in retail sales. And it can support a 42,000 square foot grocery store, 40,000 square feet of department store type goods and services, 15,000 square feet of limited service eating places like Chipotle, a hardware store, microbreweries, and about 3 to 4 full-service restaurants are supportable there. This will be on our report. This is each category that we found is supportable, and this is the estimated square footage that's supportable and the number of stores. We found that by this year, 2016, that you can support somewhere between 39 and 47 new retail stores at the town center site, and that includes apparel stores, book and music, department store merchandise, a florist, furniture stores, general merchandise, grocery store, hardware, lawn and garden center, miscellaneous, office supply and gift stores, and a sporting goods store. We also found that you can support about 45,000 square feet of restaurants right now. That includes brew pubs, full-service restaurants, limited service restaurants, specialty food services. And they would generate about $300 a square foot per year in retail sales. And that equates, 14 to 21 new restaurants.
It's one of the things that we talked about at the stakeholder meeting last time was, do you want us to actually, Terry, before you go off on that, can you back up one?
Isn't there a housing slide?
Yeah, I'll go, that's on his next one, I'll send that over. Well,
Do you want me to go back to yours, or?
just for
Okay,
1 second,
sure.
and go back to mine. One of the things, yeah, thanks, Terry. What is this? I mean, you guys know your town. One of the things that we talked about at the last, at the stakeholder meeting, that people really want is like there's nowhere, there's not many places you have a tablecloth and a menu in Southfield, according to your stakeholders. And you know, Bob and people have been craving it, and Bob's telling you that there's a demand for that. I mean, that's one of the elements. So this notion of full service restaurants, the notion of grocery store, sort of department store, limited store. I mean, what is your reaction to that? Does that sound about right to you? It sounds. So that's one of the things that I think one of the things you need is also going to be supportable from the market studies as we go forward with the planning on that.
And our job is to tell you what the market will support today for the next 5 years. It's not, you don't really have to build any of it, or you could ask us to plan more. This is roughly, we think, what's supportable now, about 140,000 feet. So you could come back, of course, and say, we don't want it that big. We'd rather have it half that size or a quarter that size. That's what we would like to get some feedback from you. The site will easily accommodate the 140,000 square feet. There's enough room to do that.
Bob, you mentioned what's supported here. This is not a case you build it and they will come. So how do we get these, we build it, how do we get these restaurants and various things? Is there a certain marketing? I mean, maybe I jumped ahead.
No, that's a good question. It really should be built through a third-party developer. An experienced third-party developer should come in and build it. They will do marketing, promotion, advertising, and they will get a collection of restaurants and retailers that will send out a lot of marketing. So it really shouldn't be the city's responsibility to do the marketing. Now, there is another way to go. The University of Place in Washington, which took 15 years to develop, they couldn't find a developer to come in. Even though they had a market for Whole Foods, nobody believed the market study.
Sure.
So the city actually just did a master plan and divided the site up into small pieces. And then they had small developers come. They had one developer build the Whole Foods. One developer builds a couple of shops. One developer do housing, which is the way real towns are built. So that's something we'll get into, but once the master plan is done, you could divide it up into small parcels and sell it and be sort of the general developer, or you could go out and find a third-party master developer.
As far as the first 3 cities, 4 cities that you mentioned, how many of those were university towns?
Oh,
or
we're like an
close
eds and
proximity?
meds kind of situation.
Yeah. I think you have one called University Place.
Well, I mean, when you talk
Yeah.
about like East, I mean, when you talk about something like Easton, Easton's technically in Columbus, but it's really far away from the Ohio State University. When you talk about, Tacoma, those, probably none of them.
University Place isn't a university place. It had a university in the 1800s, but it left.
Okay.
They need to change their
Yeah.
name.
Yeah, I was, when you mentioned Columbus, that made me think about.
No,
all these
it's-
college towns.
It's all the way, very far away, yeah. So that, it did, these places, we carefully selected them because they had probably a lot of the same challenges and were really comparable as far as developer-led versus municipally-led, et cetera. So we're talking about, resident.
Any other questions? Mr. Fikasi?
Yeah, Bob, how do you figure a grocery store and then only 9 acres of land when you get a city of Berkeley, for example, you have Hiller's shopping center market in there, and they don't have any supermarket anymore except for the one on Woodward Avenue. And Southfield is 27 square miles, and we don't have only 3 shopping centers, 3 name stores in the entire city. If you take rooftops, include Farmington Hills, Birmingham, Berkeley, Oak Park, very few grocery stores exist. What I'm talking about is name brands or whatever. If a person can't do business, they won't come. And when they look at what's happening in the industry, it's going to be hard to get anybody with a grocery store per se in this area. Now, I guess I'm asking for what kind of a grocery store are you kind of identifying? A market type or what?
We're thinking a specialty market. There are a whole group of new grocers coming into Southeast Michigan. Fresh Time, for example, is coming into this market. Well, it takes about 6,000 to 8,000 houses to support a grocery store. And we found that you've got more than enough houses to support a grocery store, and the people living within 2 miles of here are driving. A lot of them are going to Telegraph and 12 Mile, a lot of them going to Maple and Losser. A lot of them are driving 4 to 8 miles to the grocery store. And we think that if you had a grocery store within a mile or 2 of their house, that you would interrupt some of those trips, those people going up to Bloomfield Township or Birmingham. We think you can intercept those trips. So there are grocers that are coming here, and we think, we know the market has potential here to support enough sales for a grocery store. Now, whether they'll come here or not, that's another question. But the market is overwhelming that you have the demand for it. And if you don't, you could, as an alternative, consider a public market. There's USDA funding to build public markets, and that's something that you can consider as an
The
alternative.
thing that hurts the independents is there's no longer wholesale distributors of groceries.
Mhm.
And you got Spartan Foods, and that's about it. The rest of them are all
Right.
gone. They're all bought up by the big boys.
Right.
But, you know, I was telling one of the stores the other day, take Southfield Road, which is highly traveled, from the expressway, actually from 8 Mile Road to 14 Mile Road, or say 13 Mile, there's not one grocery store. And you have Berkeley and Lathrop and Southfield and all these rooftops, major subdivisions, a lot of homes, and they're reasonably small homes yet, but there's more density and doesn't bring nobody else sees it in the industry. In other words, I would think that somebody who's in the business of grocery stores would jump in pretty heavy into an area where there's no store.
And that's what a developer could do. If you found a retail developer, could make the pitch. They could take this to the national grocery store conferences, and they could make a pitch about the strength of your demographics. A grocery store probably won't come on its own. It'll have to come through a developer. If you had a grocery store, then we could grow the center from 25,000 feet up to about 110,000, 115,000 feet if we can get an anchor. If you're right, or if we can't get an anchor here, then I'd keep the center to about 25,000 to 30,000 feet.
Are we too close to Whole Foods? Are we too close to Whole Foods?
Yeah, you're probably too close for a Whole Foods, but you know, Fresh Time just opened on Big Beaver, and I don't know if you know it. It's a chain that's coming in from the south. It just opened on Big Beaver and Rochester Road. These are specialty grocers that have good produce and good meats and good prepared foods, which can compete with the Krogers and the Meyers. They can come slightly under the radar.
I drive out to Whole Foods.
One more question. You and the young lady you mentioned the guy from Parkinson's Street. So is he the guru and what is
His name is Chris Lineberger.
Yeah, both of y'all mentioned him. And you mentioned there was a trend in walkable doors. How long is this trend? And will it die out?
Well, I don't know if it'll die out. It's been documented for about 10 years.
Right.
And it's gaining momentum. 10 years ago, only 30% of the home buyers, families, wanted to live in walkable communities. Today it's about 75%. It's really gaining momentum. And we think it's going to continue because when empty nesters are selling their suburban homes, many of them want to live where they can actively walk to shops and restaurants. Not all of them, but about 75% of them. And we're pretty confident the millennials, we know the millennials want this. So this is the first time this is the first time really, some people say in American history, in which two large demographic segments, the millennials are the largest demographic segment now in the US. It used to be the baby boomers. This is the first time that both massive demographic groups want the same house. They both want a walkable house with 2 to 3 bedrooms in a walkable place. And it's never happened before that such large groups wanted the same house. So I think it's got a future. If not, there's plenty of conventional suburban homes in the area for them to go to. This is our analysis of the housing. We were asked to do a housing, and we did this with Zimmerman Volk Associates out in New Jersey. And we estimate that altogether, the site can support 250 multifamily homes built in 4 to 5 story buildings with retail on the ground level. And that equates to 203 rental apartments and about 47 condominiums. And then in our study, we have the estimated price per foot, but it's high enough to justify new construction. I think it was around $1.65 or 80 a square foot. So the numbers are there. So by supportable, we mean that a developer could build 250 multifamily apartments. These would tend to be on the semi-luxury side. They would have granite countertops, nice finishes, nice custom moldings, hardwood floors, and these would appeal to your empty nesters in this market and then your your millennials. So very strong housing demand. And I think the next question would be for you is, would you like to see 250 if we could support them? Would you like to see that many homes there on the 80-acre site, or what would you like us to plan? Okay.
Now, if they're in a 4 to 5 story building, that means elevators, right?
Yes, that's right.
Now, because the two largest demographic groups are after the same home, are all of these homes ADA accessible or are not?
No, not everyone would meet the letter of the law for ADA accessibility, but they would all have elevators. Some of them would have the handicap bathrooms, so, that means a certain thing, certain kind of kitchen design. But by law, a certain percentage of them would have to be fully ADA accessible.
By law.
How do we split that up?
By law.
Well, you could set a policy yourself as a city. You could say we want 10%, 20% ADA accessible. I don't know what the code is, but there is a code. There is a Americans for Disability Act code that requires a certain percentage be set aside. The ADA ones have lower countertops. They're made to be wheelchair accessible. The bathrooms and showers are different. And those are nice, but they don't appeal to everybody. Not everybody wants the lower countertops. Some
Or
people
wider doors? And
Yeah. But these would be homes that are stacked with retail on the first level, 4 to 5 stories. And that's a magic number, 4 to 5 stories, because you can build wood frame construction with 4 to 5 stories. When you go higher than 4 stories, you have to do steel and concrete, which makes a much more expensive building.
Mr. McCusky?
Bob, how does this development of 9 acres affect the surrounding area? Does it fit in?
I
Or is
think,
it just an anthill in the middle of a field?
I think it'll do a couple of things. I think it'll make your office towers more valuable, because people that work in those offices will be able to come down the elevator and walk to a variety of shops and restaurants. So I'm pretty confident you'll see stronger rents and higher interest in those offices. And I think it'll help your surrounding neighborhoods, because people will be able to take a bike ride or walk to an interesting town center where they can choose from restaurants. So I think it'll be positive for both.
Bob, if you could also, I think I've heard you before say that the hotels like to be close to these walkable destinations.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. Hotels love to be, the new trend for hotels is to be in walkable town centers, because there's a lot of business travelers that are women right now, and they overwhelmingly prefer to be able to check in and walk around to a town center. So Easton Town Center, for example, has 2 or 3 hotels, and when you go to the hotel conferences, the hotel operators are saying, please I don't want to locate on an interstate freeway at an exit where you can walk to a gas station. They want to be in a town center where people can walk around and go shopping. This will help your Westin, or certainly this will help the Westin Hotel, and probably help you attract other hotels here too, if you want them.
Okay, Mr. Cruz?
Just curious, as we're doing this work here, we acquired the Northland property now, and that's going to start some development phases now. Do you think that any decisions we make about what goes here is going to have an effect on what we decide over on that side, or is it far enough away where it wouldn't matter what we did here, that it wouldn't be in competition? Like, say, for instance, a grocery store, potentially see one at both of those sites, but maybe not. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. I don't think this will be competitive with the Northland Center. It's far enough away, and this is a much smaller scale. This will be somewhere between 25,000 and 120,000 square feet retail, which is classified as a neighborhood center, which has a trade area of 1.5 to 2 miles. So in reality, you'll have a larger trade area. I think people from Beverly Hills, from Franklin, from Birmingham, from Bloomfield Township, Detroit will come here. But generally, no, I think this is more of a complement than a competition to Northland, because it's so small.
In your concept, Do you, did you take into consideration green design?
No, we haven't gotten to that point yet. We're still just deciding what to put on the property. But I know Hamilton Anderson is known for green design and sustainable design, so that'll be, I'm sure, part of your.
Yeah, we're just, and again, if we didn't make it clear, what the first step, what we told you we would do is get an understanding for what's supportable. The worst thing I think we could possibly do is just start drawing with absolutely no idea for how it's going to be filled, how, you know, how you're gonna market it, who's gonna occupy it. So this is really our first step, is what do we have to work with here? What's our best hope? If we were to draw this whole thing in with a bustling, you know, bustling neighborhoods, and we know that there's no capacity for it, that's the next step. Of course, from a green infrastructure standpoint, that depends on where you guys are from a leadership standpoint, from the municipality. Is that something that you want to require of the developer? Same thing with the question for ADA or low income. These are all things that you, as the owner of the site, are going to be able to mandate.
So I'm curious as to how do you feel about having the 200, 240 multifamily homes here? How do you feel about having a grocery store, if you can get one, or 120,000, 140,000 square foot center? Does that frighten you over its size, or does that seem about right? Any feelings about that? Because I will need some direction for planning.
Ms. Morris?
I like the concept of 250 residential units. I also like either the grocery store or the market space. I thought that was a little fresh and innovative. But I did have a quick question about the retail. And I was just wondering, how do you encourage the more organic mom and pop? I don't know in the other town centers that you showed how many of those were occupied by, you know, locally owned business owners, or if they were more national.
I think you're going to have to negotiate that with the developer when you start selecting a developer. And you may want to set a policy saying we'd like a certain percentage set aside as locals. The locals will do better if they have a grocery store or anchors for people to come to. It'll help them with traffic. But I think that could be a direction that you want to set. Some developers only want national tenants because they can be open at night. The local tenants tend not to be open at night. They tend to close at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. Some like national because they're more creditworthy, but a lot of communities want a lot of locals, and I think that's the kind of direction that you could negotiate with your developer.
Don't locals tend to fail more often than the nationals?
About 5 times as more of a failure rate, yes.
Yeah, but
But
I
it's-
just can't see another cell phone business or another. I mean, we are already, you know, saturated with those, so I would hope we would encourage, you know, business development, which
It's nice having some locals. Makes it a little more real to do that. I agree.
Mr. Tennessee? Oh, if you're done, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
Mr.
a
Guthrie.
question, we have a shopping center, neighborhood shopping center 1 mile north, which is pretty much, according to the owner, failing. What would make that fail and be successful? What is the difference between the two?
These walkable town centers tend to overperform conventional centers where you park and you walk through the parking lot. People tend to drive further to go to these, and they tend to have much higher sales. For example, if we did the plan for the Village of Rochester, that was a conventional mall that had failed and was completely empty. We tore the mall down and built on the same ground 350,000 square feet of walkable retail, and it's done extremely well. Same property, same households, same demographics. The only thing different was one had a main street and shops, and one was an enclosed mall. And so if this were planned and built to the high standard that I think it will be, people will drive further on a more regular basis. That's why places like Royal Oak, Ferndale, Northfield, Plymouth, Birmingham, really, they overperform their markets because they're walkable. People like that versus conventional shopping centers. And in Southeast Michigan, we don't have very many walkable places. So when you do build one, or when you have a downtown that's walkable, it greatly overperforms.
What's the difference between the city picking a plan and getting the developer or getting the developer to come up with his plan, what he feels would go in this, his plan.
I think by you master planning, by you taking the lead and master planning it, you can set your own values and goals as a community right from the beginning of what you're gonna have there. If you have the developer bring plans to you, then you'll always be in a reactive mode. You'll always say, no, we want the street to be more walkable, we want the sidewalks to be wider. And the developer will have their own opinion. Once Hamilton Anderson is done with the plan, the developer will come with counters, but they'll be reacting to it. I think it's very important for you to have a plan that meets your vision, your development standards for developers to come to respond to. I think you'll attract better developers too. I think by you having a market study, the market studies, and by you having a plan that the community has bought into, I think the developer world will know that you're more serious and that they're pretty much pre-approved if they build your plan. I mean, it's not a site plan approval, but they know that you've bought into it. And that's a lot better than them buying 8 acres of land without knowing what you're going to approve. I mean, in a way, you're saying if you develop something close to this, you've got our support. And that takes a lot of risk out of it for the developers.
How many local developers are within the range of this place or in Michigan would be receptive to a 9-acre site?
There's about 2 or 3 developers I know that we can help you with that would be interested in it locally. There's probably about 20 or 30 nationally. And I think because of you being Southfield, because of your central location, that you will be worthy of a regional or national, a Chicago or a national developer wanting to come here. A lot of the local developers, to be frank, got scared off of Bloomfield Park. And they only like to build strip centers. And I think you're going to get something better than that. I think you want something better than a strip center.
Ms. Seymour?
Yes, Bob, what I don't see here, and would like to see are places in nice weather for people to sit outside, little mini parks. Not even a park, but you know, there's such a thing as a park.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so again, we're not to the design phase yet.
Right.
We're just trying to get an understanding for what are our building blocks that we have to work with. And that's, as we said, was going to be the first step. And I think you can probably respond to that, but that is one of the key elements of these town centers is they always have not just 1, 2, but possibly 1 main and several additional public spaces that are privately owned.
Many places, many, not many, but small
Yes.
little spots. It's so nice whether people want to sit outside and on benches. And
That's so important
I
to
think
have
it's huge.
parks and
Yeah.
squares and plazas, and you really have to do that.
Right.
And these work better when you do it.
Thank you.
Now, I'll give you my planning knowledge. The parks and squares that are planned are going to look small to you on paper. But when they look small, they're the right size. And when they look the right size in the plan, they're always too big. So we're going to probably talk a lot about sizing of them, but the smaller ones do better.
The green space for people to be outside,
Yeah.
to me, is very important.
Yeah,
Because if you just have concrete,
I agree.
you know, thank you.
And the retailers are paying more now when they are on a square, and the apartments get much higher rents if your apartment overlooks the square and park. So that's an old real estate. It used to be when they built London and they built European cities, they built the squares for real estate to get higher values in real estate. Not to be nice, they built the squares for a profit center.
Well, it's good for both.
Yeah, it's good for both, right?
That's important, very important to me. I think it would make the place successful. Without it, I don't think it would be.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Any more feedback?
Yeah, your original question was, how do we feel about an additional 250 homes? I have a question, and I don't think you can answer it, but maybe Terry can answer it, maybe Fred can answer it, maybe no one can answer it. We already have the 5,000 town center, but we also have the townhouses down there. And what is the take on those? Are they filled, are they half empty?
Well, I'm sure Terry can talk about it, but when you live in a townhouse, the trade-off is you have to be in a town. You have to be able to walk to lots of restaurants and shops and such. And so we feel that once this town is built, this town center is built, that those will become much more desirable than they are right now. And I don't know, you probably want to talk about it.
Yeah, you know, you've heard me say it before, we have 35,000 housing units, about 50 owner occupied, of the kind that people want fewer and fewer of. And we have about 35,000 apartments. It's not as much as the number, it's the type of apartments. And I think Bob talked about the luxury, the high-end or the semi-luxury. That's why 12 in Southfield is doing so well, because it's a niche that we don't currently provide. Then you add in the walkability. It's going to strengthen Evershire neighborhood. It's going to strengthen our brownstones. It's going to strengthen 5000 Tower, because we have the captive audience, and unlike up the street, Mr. Fracassi, at 12 and Evergreen, we have the density here. And all of his numbers, I oversimplify it, but everybody has so much power, spending power based on their income. And if they're not spending it here, they're spending it somewhere else. And that's where ultimately the justification of this. Then you have some synergy if you create that place that people now want to be. And people have limited lunch hours, so they have fewer opportunities to get in a car and drive a mile or two. But if they can run downstairs and walk across the street to a place, then they're more apt to do it where they are brown bagging it now, or they're just going downstairs to the cafeteria. Many employers want to provide that space there because they want to keep their employees working instead of taking hour and 2 hour lunches. The other capture is if you have a nice place to go, I might not be out all night, but I'll give up an hour to have a beer with a buddy and then head home, to my other obligations if it's quick and convenient and it's a nice place to be. And everybody, the bottom line, loves people watching.
Right.
And regardless of all the different trends of retail and shopping, people like to see and be around people. And that's why there's places where you'll wait an hour and a half for a table, because it's the place to be and you run into people from your neighborhood. So all those factors are kind of working into it.
Companies are seeing higher worker productivity when they're in a town center. Workers are more productive, and there's lower turnover when they're in town centers.
Right. Amy has just a couple more slides to get through and some exercises, but
Mr. Fracassi?
I respect Radical because they have a lot of experience not only locally but in other cities. Why would they go to Brookfield and tear down the building and build strip retail as opposed to coming here to the city center and adding a parking deck, and not a parking deck, just a flat parking lot, eating up all that land, and you're probably going to have some people walk almost a quarter of a mile if you're in the engineering building on a snowy day, which does not make sense to me. I'm just wondering, are the people who are doing business in the city center having a lack of vision of what's going on? I mean,
Bob might be
you
the
know what I'm
answer.
talking about.
Yes,
I'm against that
we talked to
expansion of
Mr.
that parking lot.
Zorn about, there's a formula that they have that's an easy, quick, cookie cutter formula to a certain margin of profit that they can do over and over again. But it takes some vision and planning and partnerships to get the buy-in.
Right. These are hard to do. These are harder to do than shopping centers.
But Mr. Sosnick, if you were living, you would do what Bob is saying. He said we got too much office. We need a high-rise luxury apartments, and that's what he, before he died, was going to build. Where he's at in the city center, and I guess I'm just trying to put all these different facets together when the people who are the Edkins, they're nationally known, the Radical is nationally known, and they come in here and build a parking lot. I mean, that's what really
Part of it's
bothers
that
me.
local bias and prejudice from what happened up the street. Part of it is, I don't have to work so hard
And part of
Make a
it is
certain
because when municipal, developers will develop to the lowest common denominator. They're going to develop whatever they can, and they're going to develop the most that they can in order to. You have a really, this isn't just about developing the units that Bob's tell you are going to be produced. It's not just about putting that much retail together, however you need to do that. This is about really changing what is happening in Southfield, and that you're changing the momentum. You are basically going to set the priorities and say that it is our first priority that you're going to create a walkable place that's going to be an asset to our community. I'm sure that there's many strip centers up and down Evergreen Road, but would you consider them an asset to your community? I think that's these are some of the questions. It's really important, and if we haven't hit the point home, I'll say it one more time, we have to start changing the way you're developing and what you consider acceptable development to developers. If you do just what's profitable for them, you're probably going to get more of the same. It's not going to be sustainable, and those folks will be looking for new tenants in 7 to 10 years. So that's it's more there's a lot more at stake than just filling the retail and residential units for this particular property.
I'm just trying to get things clear in my mind on the development side. When Farmington Hills is getting 5 hotels, Troy's getting 4 or 5, and we have a corner of that at Civic Centre Drive and Northwestern, the whole corner, that would be a great place for a hotel, and they can't find, and they're looking for a hotel to build there, and they can't find one. And it just kind of gets to me, why is it difficult when hotels are being built everywhere around us, and we have such a easy access to downtown Detroit with all the entertainment, and Weston is doing a good job. Why is it that with the exposure on Northwestern and being in the city center, why can't a hotel say, hey, what a great location?
But again, and I think Bob went into some detail about that. Why exactly, without getting in the inner workings of the market analyses that each hotel chain is doing, what their higher ups, but it's more, it's a layering effect. It's more about access to jobs. It's more about freeway access. There's a lot of other factors in play, and why that's happening. We know that by building in this manner that we're talking about, it certainly isn't going to hurt the way future hotel chains are looking. Let's say they're looking for another 500 keys to go down. When this is in place, it's certainly going to be more attractive, and it's definitely not going to hurt. I can't say that we totally understand why they're passing your city over, but there's a lot of other more attractive locations.
But across the street from LTU,
Right.
I mean, I look at all the positive things that are surround that corner, and the people come to visit, they're from out of the country visiting LTU, and they have to stay somewhere. And I'm just wondering why that market is not being picked on here, I guess. I just am kind of, a lot of questions in my mind about why it seems like Southfield is not the place to build. And it really bothers me because, it's got so much going for it, just like they're arguing about a person moving to Detroit instead of coming to Southfield. I mean, you don't have to pay $40 a week for a parking lot, you don't have to pay an income tax, you don't have to pay 83 mills in Detroit. What's the negative here that isn't in Detroit? Is it, all the big names want to be nicey and add and contribute to Detroit? Is that, Mayor pays $5 million for a park for Detroit, and our headquarters here in Southfield. And I just try to put all these things together and throw it out on the table, because that's what drives me crazy. Anyway, where your offices are, there shouldn't be any driving on the streets, it should be walkable.
Well, no, we need parking, we need on-street parking in front of us, that's very important. You were not paying attention when you were listening to Bob, that's very important.
I'll take one more comment from the mayor, and then let you finish your presentation.
First of all, I'm very glad that you said what you said about we have to demand something different. That's actually why we bought the property, because Pomeroy had a plan for 5 more fast food places with drive-ins. It was gonna be the same old, and not the density that we wanted. That's in the first place. What I'm seeing over at Town Center is, they're recreating those buildings, the high-rises. I don't know if you've been over there, but they've done a lot of work on the lobby to make it more inviting. And then, one of the things that I always found, and it's going to your point that you both made, I do not like parking in the parking structure when I go over there. I'm not working in those buildings, I'm going to visit those buildings. I'm going to a lawyer's office or some business, and now just today, the Comerica Bank is open over there. I like to pull up out front, as close as I can get to the building I'm going into. And so what have they done over there? They've added a whole new area of outdoor parking, and I think it speaks to the point that you're making, that people don't really like parking structures. I think I'd be more likely to park in them if I worked there every day and so on. But for the people, like the customers that are going in and out of those buildings, that was a shortfall, especially since the hotel had all this reserved valet parking. I'm not going to use the hotel valet parking if I'm just going, like today, I spent 10 minutes at Comerica Bank and left the center. So that's 2 points. The third point is, Don's talking about hotels. I'm wondering, can we really support a 4th hotel? The city center has the Westin and 2 smaller hotels that, as far as I know, are doing fairly well. From what through the chamber board, they tell me they're doing pretty well. They show up to those meetings. So I don't know that we could support a 4th hotel across the street.
Well, it also
So I'm
depends on,
interested in
when we
your-
talk about hotels, just the way Bob described with grocery stores, not all grocery stores are the same, not all retailers are the same. So there's lots of hoteliers that are out there that are more boutique in nature, different price points, different travelers, and then quite frankly, just the same as retail. They have different customer base. And if there's money to be made and they see a hole in the demographic, they will come if all the right situations are in
You
place.
might be able to support a boutique hotel, and we actually did a market study for the city 2 years ago for hotels, and found that you could support about a 100-room hotel. And if you could put it in a walkable town center, it would be one of the best performing hotels in southeast Michigan. It would overperform the market. A lot of business travelers love coming and checking in and walking in these town centers.
Could it anchor a project like this?
Yes, be an excellent anchor. It would really help the restaurants and the shops. Because every night you get 100 new people with fresh American Express cards.
Right. And you guys were here just 2 weeks ago. Lawrence Tech came and talked about a 4,000 seat stadium that will bring more people in and more tournaments. And that's literally, half a mile away. So there might be that niche of other things that are happening in the area.
And the last thing before because I know we're really running over on time, there's 2 more things that I wanted to, but when you were talking about the reason you bought this site, one of the things that I think is really excellent, of course, we're centered on Evergreen where you've done all the improvements, but the fact that the city still controls everything across the street, that you have control over what is going to happen at this new epicenter that you're creating. While the scope of our work is, only within this site, I think that we would be doing a disservice if we didn't start thinking about future investments as you continue to move forward. Your front lawn, it's nice, but it's not incentivizing anything additional as we continue to move forward. All the transactions, when people come to pay their water bill, when they come to check out a book at the library, you are missing hundreds, if not thousands, of retail transactions because somebody's going to have to get back in their car to go do something else when at the end of that. And a lot of municipalities are waking up to that. I'm not saying that's something we're going to be doing at this effort, but it's something we definitely want to be looking forward to when we as we go forward. And the success of this project, whether it happens the way Bob is describing with one developer, with several developers, you're going to lay down that vision and you're going to be laying down the groundwork. You will be deciding whether or not you want some piece to be set aside for affordable, some pieces to be set aside for ADA, as well as the design requirements that we were talking about. So when, did you have a question?
Yeah, we've talked over the years about having a performing arts center, and there's space on the city hall, and I don't see how to do that. And how could that fit into something in this plan? A small, performing arts.
Well, I mean, I think that there's definitely, there's potential for everything. Right now, we're just taking a look at this particular 8 acres, and as you move across the street, as you move across the street into other areas, of course, those are obviously wonderful when you have a great benefactor. Right.
We've talked about it many years,
Right.
When you're looking at the space the way you were, that made me think that could fit in there somewhere. We should do something about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when we talked to the stakeholders, we were taking a look. We're talking a lot about the strengths of this area, and of course, there are a lot of the things that that you were talking about with the access to the freeways, and these are all things that these are nice and fine. You know, you have the improvements that were made to Evergreen Road. Of course, Lawrence Tech is an amazing strength. And this foundation for new development, a lot of these incentives are in place. Of course, the brownfield money is obviously great for stimulating parking. A lot of momentum, what Terry just talked about, some of the other activities that are happening at Lawrence Tech, and all of the amenities that are in place. One of the main constraints that we didn't impose, but the stakeholders sort of arrived at on their own, is this notion of, these limited number of destinations. We need this destination, and the reality is, again, just like I'm being very real with you about these office parks that you have, the reality is you're very weak in transit there, and the plans that are in place for public transportation in the area are going to continue to hurt you as you move forward. But as the Regional Transit Authority hopefully begins to get momentum as we go forward, as you continue to have a voice for public transit in the area, and having this presence on Evergreen Road, as we think about this larger network of the region, that's something that will ultimately help you if you as a community are going to continue to lobby for that. But again, we need to be very realistic about that. Of course, the opportunities are building on these good relationships, continuing to capitalize on the Lawrence Tech population. They're just right, they're literally just a hop, skip, and a jump over there, but we are putting as many barriers as possible to make it impossible for them to walk from point A to point B, to getting across these roads, and getting an understanding for how we can improve those connections are going to be important. Look at that, showcase the arts, one of the things that the stakeholders came up with. And of course, the threats. The workforce is moving to Detroit, young people moving to Detroit, the sky is falling, everybody wants Detroit, nobody wants us, woe is us. But one of the things that Bob's study is saying is, yes, people do want that, but we have to offer something different. More of the same, more office parks are not going to get it done, more strip malls are not going to get it done, and I think you guys are all finally, if I haven't beaten it into you, getting to the point. So the last thing that we'll talk about today is the visual preference survey. And visual preference surveys are an old-fashioned crutch that planners have been using since the dawn of man, about what is your gut check, what is your internal gut check about what looks right to you, what looks like Southfield, what's the kind of development that you would like to see. And we had about 60 folks that we talked a little bit about, and they made their preferences for the things that they'd like to see. And again, people were really gravitating towards images that talked about outdoor dining, a lot of sort of temporary and pop-up locations, a lot of the things you just don't have here. Almost all of these situations where you have on-street parking with meters near retail, as Bob talked about, movable tables and chairs for these public spaces that we talked about. The things that they did not like were a lot of what you have, good, bad, or indifferent. And we talked a little bit about this notion of townhouse, but I think it's It's townhouse, as Bob described, it's the townhouse with no town.
Yep.
And so this notion of actually creating something that's walkable, it wasn't necessarily about the product, but these kind of environments, you know, people can smell that a mile away when it's manufactured or when it's fake. It's intended to look like something that's in a more of an urban environment, but you haven't provided that urban environment. That's something that we walked through a lot with the stakeholders. Oh. So what we're going to do next, and it's important, we'll send you just some preliminary draft of the market study. It's not complete yet. It hasn't gone through the vetting, through your audit process, which I know is long and right to get it through your audit process. We'll go through and send around some of those preliminary numbers that Bob just described and give you some time to let us know if you have any additional reactions to that. But what we're going to do next is really actually get to a lot of the questions that you have and actually get to some of the preliminary design now that we have our building blocks to work with. Bob mentioned huge spread, anywhere from 25,000 to 125,000 square feet of retail. That's really going to depend on whether or not you're successful with an anchor or not. And I think that in order for this plan to be correct, we should probably have a plan B in place. We should have a notion of what is the best that meets the vision if that larger anchor is not going to be secured. So we're going to work through and come back to you with our preliminary concepts that have those building blocks that we talked about in place. The retail, the public space, and when we talk about public space, it will probably be private, but it will be open to the public. And the residential that we talked about. We'll probably we'll have some of the site plans that we showed you the last time we were here with some early concepts on how the streets might look, and more importantly, some sort of instructions to future developers. Some of the framework that you as a city might like to put in place as requirements to responding to your proposal. So again, I appreciate all the time, but it was important that we walked through all the intricacies of the plan and of the findings of the market study. Do you guys have any additional questions?
I do have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I appreciate the time you put into it and coming here to make the presentation to us. But I'm going to do a little pushback.
Okay.
The pushback is, you said if we build more of the same, it wouldn't work, and you're glad as you're here to beat on us and we're finally getting it. You wouldn't be here if we didn't get it.
Well, are you saying that because there's a need, or are you saying?
No, we want to do something different.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So you wouldn't be here unless.
Oh,
we've
absolutely,
already
understood, fair
published.
enough, sir, fair enough. So it's just important that that everyone understands why we're working so hard to create a plan that's different and why there's so many, why there would be so many requirements for an RFP. And especially the amount of time that will be taken into putting that framework together. So
When you get ready to, from my input, when you get ready to put the pen to paper,
Mhm.
I would like to see something that's different but complementary to what we already have, so that it doesn't look like it was built by, a committee.
Absolutely. And again, that'll come, a lot of that, the building blocks, again, I'm a planner, born as a landscape architect, so is Bob. But one of the things that's important is that there's building blocks and there's the way that the form works. And then there's the skin. The skin is a lot of times can be changed, and we have to be very careful that this isn't that this is going to withstand the test of time, which is where if it comes on in phases, it probably will be more successful. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate your comment.
One other thing, Grand Rapids has been very successful in getting people to come downtown. I know the art price is one thing, but they've done some other amenities that bring people downtown. My nephew, it was interesting, my nephew sent me a Facebook with, he and his two sons were playing music on the street in the evening in Grand Rapids. And so I sent him back a note and I said, now how does this work? And he said they have several places where they have wired either the light, the street light, or they have an attachment that bring your own equipment, but they provide the power. You plug in, first come, first serve, and it's whoever feels that they can entertain, but it's a series of people And he said that you can play until 11 o'clock, I think it is, but you have to be, you can't disturb people. I mean, you can play, but you can't play so loud that it disturbs people. And I thought that was pretty neat, that it gave the amateur musicians an opportunity to expose themselves to the community. And I'd like to see something like that, you know, and an opportunity for something like that, so.
Well, and that will be, again, something that we can work into the framework, but of course, once these public spaces, which will be the manifestation of whatever we create, the next and most critical layer that should be designed at the same time are the programming of these public spaces. It's not just about, you know, build it and they will come,
Sure.
setting out a couple movable tables and chairs and actually working through that programming, and that whoever is the managing entity of this space, it's going to be important for you to have, if you want to do your if you want to do your project for public spaces, you know, 10 best things, 10 things to do, see, et cetera. These are things that you can work into that framework, but you're absolutely right, the programming is just as, if not more important than the space.
Sure, okay. Thank you
Any
much.
other questions?
Anyone else?
Let
Okay.
me just ask something, just to clarify. You use the term building blocks. Have we determined, I know you went through a lot, I think we did touch base on several things. Have you, what are the building blocks?
Well, right now,
as of
the building blocks are what we think is supportable
Right.
from a retail perspective and from a residential perspective,
Right.
based on the square footages that we talked
Right,
about.
so those are the
The
building.
public spaces, et cetera.
The
Yes.
retail, the residential and public
Mhm.
spaces. So those are the building blocks that you're touch base on.
Absolutely.
Based on the square footage of it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna pass these out. This was the visual preference survey that we did with the stakeholder group last time. If you would like, and Terry agreed to be the collector of these, there's a little white dot in the bottom of them. If you want to go through and put an X on the ones that you do not like and a check mark on the ones that you do like, that I think that would be, I think that would be an interesting way for us to sort of back channel these and compare them against the stakeholders to see, as, you know, elected officials, what you like and what you don't. So you will collect those for us, Terry? We were gonna do it tonight, but we absolutely ran out of time, so.
You could just take them home and turn them in by next Monday, okay? And I'll
Will
collect
there
them.
be any more stakeholder meetings?
Yes. So what we're hoping to do is, we had the initial stakeholder meeting, then the elected official meeting, and once the marketing report has been finalized, we'll go back to a stakeholder meeting for some preliminary visioning, and then come back again to another session like this, and keep building on top of that until we get a final product that we'll bring back for your blessing.
Okay. X is bad, check is good.
That's right. X,
Yep.
X is bad, just like cross it out, check is I like it, and if you're indifferent, you don't have to mark every box. And then through the council president, I just have one small add-on that we talked about at the council president's meeting. And this gets to a little bit on providing some programming and providing some sense of excitement that ultimately, working with Parks and Recreation, working with our private industry, we're hoping to expand our E to the Beat concerts this year. Instead of just from noon to 2, we got an aggressive program from noon to 7 p.m. We're going to have a band from noon to 2, and then maybe from 5 to 7, and in between, we're going to have games and activities. We're going to have tents. We're going to have food trucks. We're going to have art. We talked about a human foosball or human chess, checkers. Other events, we're going to theme the 4 events. One will be a precursor to the Woodward Dream Cruise. We might have antique cars set up. We might have a pre-game tailgate party. We might have some other themes, but it's starting to get people comfortable coming to the spaces. And one of the whimsical things that working with the Southfield City Center, a lot of communities, you may be aware, set up these large graphics. This happens to be, everything's bigger in Dallas, everything's bigger in Texas. This is big. This is at one of their urban parks in downtown Dallas. This actually happens to be a freeway park that they reclaimed over the highway. I had to wait in line. There were 6 or 7 people ahead of me that wanted to get their photo taken as part of this. Then you post it to a social media website like #BigDallas, and people see the images. When I was talking about it the other day, both Shelley and someone else pulled up something about I Love Bahamas. They put themselves in as I Heart Bahamas. And so people are starting to gravitate to this thing, and we would create, here's several images of Indianapolis, where people have taken their picture and posted to the site. We were playing off Southfield, where someone can insert themselves as the upright part of the L, or can create the F. And they have instructions there, and they'll have a hashtag. And what we'd like to do is create these mobile pieces that we can bring out for the Eat to the Beat concert, we can bring out for Southfield's Summer S'more Fest, or the Southfield Solstice Run, and then have semi-permanent locations throughout the campus for the rest of the year, whether it's just outside the ice arena, where it's near the volleyball courts, or the Miracle Field, maybe up around the loop. And we might start with placing all 4 letters just haphazardly around the campus, and people start seeing and trying to figure out what is this, and then bring them together. And it's pretty self-explanatory once they're pulled together. This is just something whimsical. It kind of ties in with art. It kind of captures all the people that come to the ice arena, to the pool, to the volleyball courts, to softball, to the Miracle Field. And then we can take it on the road if we have events, whether it's down in Northland or across the street at City Center. The City Center Advisory Board has put funds in for the fabrication and distribution. We would just like permission, or at least a consensus from council, that this is a direction that you might like, when, instead of storing it in a warehouse when we're not using it, having it displayed near our activity centers within the municipal campus. And again, this is just it's just one of many types of events, programs, activities that we want to incorporate into the place. Because they go hand in hand. You got to have a place, and you got to have programming, and they got to work together. So I just threw it out there. I thought it was appropriate to piggyback it on this presentation tonight, just get you thinking about it.
Okay,
Okay?
great. When do you want us to tell you?
Well, I'd like some initial feedback, but I can come back at a later time. Just even some initial comments would be helpful.
Mr. Cruz?
The F just didn't look real clear to me.
Actually, it's designed that we can change it out. We can put the F in one time, and someone can stand here.
Right.
This is a 2-piece, but someone thought, well, actually, I've had half a dozen comments that they thought this was more fun. People could do different things with it. But we designed it, we were going to create all 4 letters, and then we can change it up. So we're not stuck just doing one thing.
I think it's cool. We got it.
Yes, Mr. Ferguson?
Well, I just have to get in my own head. We used to have an arts council. The council used to talk about the whole series of events. And are we headed in that same direction, or are we just looking for one thing to do and call it art or an event? In other words, we've had arts festivals on this site. I mean, we had ice shows that knock your eyes out. I mean, we had, the Scandinavian Symphony. We had Smith and his orchestra here for the Star Spangled Southfield. We had Up with the people here. We had Drew Rawls here performing, and Nancy Wilson. What I'm trying to find out is at what level are we looking at these events and these things, and how are they being done in this so far? In other words, we had a full-time cultural person at the Parks and Recreation used to do all the events. Now we have a arts group commission. I guess, I thought they were just doing art pieces and not events. I mean, I'd like to have a definition of
Sure.
what all these things that I've been exposed to that have brought thousands of people to the site. And I just see this, it's cute, but, I mean, how does that fit into making Southfield a place to come for culture and for events and be at the level of, I'd say, sophistication, if I may?
Right. Well, the charge of the Southfield Arts Commission is actually the implementation of physical art. And as you know, the two pieces they're working on is freeing the bear, getting Boy and Bear into the rotunda of the library, and getting the gratitude piece up. They have a recommendation for all the pieces that were acquired through Northland Mall. And their charge at this time was not the visual and performing arts. This is actually coming out of the business community wanting to do more and have more programming events. And Ms. Freeman and myself are responding to our business community that says we got to do more than just have concerts from noon to 2. And as you recall, the two events that we had, the food truck rally after 5 o'clock, were very successful, and our business community want more of it. As we work towards the design, we're trying to provide and expand our programming. Again, this is actually coming out of the City Center Advisory Board. I'm going to be presenting this to the Arts Council tomorrow. I say this is kind of a crossover between arts and programming, but it's all about getting positive buzz. We're trying to create some synergy here and getting some positive exposure. This taps in very well to smartphones and millennials and others who love the opportunity to take a picture of themselves and post it and talk about it. So that's where that's coming from. I think the Leap Day Festival is a step in the right direction. I actually got called out of the blue from an organization out of New York City that wants to hold a large-scale block party. They want to have a concert. They're looking for a venue. They want it in Metro Detroit. They heard that Southfield was doing some exciting things. And the fact that we're on the radar and that they want to at least talk to us about the opportunity, I said, send me your metrics. What are you looking for? And they heard about Evergreen Road and the roundabout and the front lawn. This is a company out of New York City. Now whether Travelers Tower mentioned it or somebody else, just the fact that I got a phone call, I saw this 786 area code, and to me that means we're starting to be a blip on the radar, and it's taking advantage of those opportunities. I totally agree with you. I'd like to see Parks and Recreation do more of the programming, work more in partnership with the business community, and I think once we develop a venue, whether it's through the private or it's a partnership with the public, there's going to be many more opportunities to do these types of things. I was just, if I could, one last comment, please. I was down to Detroit Saturday night to go to the Fox Theater with my wife. It's been a while since we've been down there. We had a little time to kill. We just gravitated towards Campus Martius. And off, I don't know what the side piece is called, but the Cadillac Center Square, they had the large adult swings that create music. And there was lines 10 deep for people to use it. Now it's a temporary thing, it was an artistic thing, it's whether you want to call it art or programming or whatever. The fact was, on a Saturday night, there was hundreds of people lining up to see the novelty of it. I know that when my daughter worked down at Meridian and Quicken Loans, they brought in sand and they created a sand beach party. There's activities that if you have a center that's in a walkable area, the programming is limitless. And that's what we're trying to work toward, Mr. Fracassi, and sometimes it's going to take baby steps because we don't have full-time people that do this.
No, but like the business consortium, you have to get, I gave the mayor a name from Denver, for example, that was willing to head up the business consortium. And once you get the business consortium going, you get out of their chunk change and get into their budgets and coming up with money. And I mentioned even with the bear brochure, it doesn't mention, it's got silver, gold, whatever sponsors, but it doesn't get the community, the business community into it. It doesn't tell the business community like Louis Theos used to do, guys get involved in like Allied Corporation and the rest of them. So, I mean, you could Lear give $5 million, you know, I mean, AMC, they would throw a big party. April in Paris was the French consul here. I mean, once you get the business people involved, you know, that's where the money comes from.
Right.
And that's how you can achieve the big party. You know, we had our fair out here, 54,000 people. Built the largest, what was it, our largest Sunday in the world.
Right.
You know, Guinness World Record.
Well, I know the mayor and the business development
That show
manager
is known all over the world.
are doing the corporate ask.
Pardon?
I know the mayor and the business development manager are going in doing the corporate ask. Last I checked yesterday, we had close to $9,000 raised on GoFundMe. $9,000 from little contributions from $25, $50, $100. That's a great buy-in. We still have a month to go before the unveiling. So every little bit helps, and it's a multi-approach.
Yeah, I think the situation is, we had it at one time, we lost it, and now we're rebuilding it a step at a time. And we may get back to where we were before, but right now, we have limited funds and limited people, so stay tuned.
Yeah, but you get volunteers, you get Denver volunteers.
I said, we do it a step at a time.
But I mean, they're the ones that have, when a corporate person talks to a corporate person, it's altogether different than we are asking, you know, a politician buys tickets for a fundraiser or something. You gotta divide this all out. It can't be political, it's gotta be business people wanting to pay back the community for police and fire and all the good things that we have in the city. And that's what makes them responsible. That makes them want to get involved to keep the city alive and well and all this stuff. I mean, all this token stuff they're building in Detroit, every corporate guy, because Dan Gilbert says, hey, you know, to really bolster yourself, you've got to come into our town and at least have a shingle out. You know, LTU moves out of a little building. Lear goes in and gets a little tiny building, it was too small for them. You know, I mean, they try and like falling over each other, trying to show that they are part of rebuilding Detroit.
Sure.
And I'm saying is that the same kind of energy has to be done here, where they want Southfield to survive because there's amenities here that they can't get anywhere else.
Right.
And we're trying to build on that excitement. This is a small step that we're trying to do. We're trying to not do the same old, same old. We're trying to create some new excitement. We've got a lot of momentum built on Evergreen Road and some of the new development coming in. You know how excited I get about every expansion at Lawrence Tech, because I think it's just going to help bring more people here. And we got to create the destinations that both Bob and Amy had talked about. But every little bit helps.
Right. Ms. Morris?
I like it. I like it.
Short and sweet, love it.
Ms. Redwell?
How heavy are they? I mean,
Well, Tanya, I'm gonna have to go like this for the wide.
I think for the, it's a good idea, and it's really cool, it's a conversation piece, and I think it'll get people involved. And just on human side, we could probably get a gymnast to do the S.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's flexible. So we can do that.
I think we're gonna be gymnasts.
I'm gonna let it Tanya, I'm gonna go like this.
It's good.
I'm gonna stand in the middle of it.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. You got your feedback. Next item on our agenda is technology services. Welcome.
No, I'm going
Oh, that's right. They lost an hour. Well, that's always. Take your time. Yeah, yeah. Just came
Terry, is anybody working with Michigan Arts Council?
Someone from the committee has reached out to me.
They won't? So you would like their insurance to protect us, so, okay, all right. Because they said verbally that it's an issue, but, okay,
Can I bend this thing?
okay, okay.
Can I bend this thing or no? Hold it?
Oh, I see.
I think so.
Have to put it in that. We'll fit in my pocket.
Doesn't say do not overstate.
No issue.
I got a little bit. Just to do like that. That's a nice stuff. On a plate. Just gotta put it over here. I just go What's that?
I bet.
What's that?
The room price could take about an hour for it to run?
No, it's not gonna take that long.
15 minutes.
55 minutes.
15 minutes.
She's helping to prove the point to
Those
get
are
better
fighting words.
technology.
It's actually that part.
You don't want to make her nervous.
No.
Terry logged down his ID.
Just help prove her point. He's a great scholar.
Well, yeah, I know, I tried calling you, but even if I can't, because I knew it was after 5.
Sorry, I already worked out the details earlier.
Was it on this issue?
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Laverne Walker. I am the Technology Services Director. Just to introduce myself, I've been managing IT department since I was 25 years old, so that's 5 years. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. My mission statement of our department. The mission statement of the Technology Services Department, you can read pretty much, I'll just paraphrase. Pretty much we are a fast-paced department. The industry pretty much determines how we run our department, how we structure our upgrades and software paths. We recognize that we have limited resources and we are very budget conscious. We try to make every attempt to do things right the first time. I do not like rework. Rework costs money and we have limited resources, so we always try to project manage everything and don't miss any points of interest. The department's policy incorporates industry standards to streamline processes for compliance, data security, data integrity, and foresight planning for the city of Southfield. What is technology services? What is technology? Technology means many things to different people. Technology to most of you may be Facebook, it might be your tablet or Instagram, or it may even be an Apple Watch or your Bluetooth headphones. That's what technology means to you. But I'm representing the Technology Services Department. So what does that mean? What is technology services? And pretty much I'm just giving you an overview. Of course, every department's gonna say they do everything, but this is truly an overview. Technology services, I'll just briefly go over this diagram for you. We support a firewall. This is the inside of our network, so that's when you hear the intranet. That's what we're talking about, is a website that gives employees resources at one-stop shopping, so to speak. And this is our local area network. We actually have a couple of firewalls, and I'll show you in further slides. But this is our wide area network, and this is where you can get to the World Wide Web. And then we have a slew of other things. I'm just going to go over a couple of them briefly. But we have a voice over IP network environment, and this presentation is not going to be technical. But longer plug into a wall jack, everything's ran by the network equipment and the back end of our closets and our server rooms. The next item on the agenda will talk about that component of our network. We also support the ERP system, which in this case would be Eden for our financials, our payroll, human resources, etc. It also incorporates BSNA, which handles our tax assessments and things of that nature. We've standardized on Microsoft Office and Dell computing. We do data security, we do email encryption, we do backups and Wi-Fi as well. I have the police and fire engine down here just to give you an example, but I want to show you some real life samples of our cars. My department handles the police car technology. This is inside the car, we do the laptop. Another company installs this, but this is the in-car cameras. We support the technology for it. And we also have a ticket printer in here. We also have streamlined our police officers so that they can just drive their cars into the police garage, and it automatically uploads the videos without them having to get out of their car. So the officer can go and do other things, and our department set that up for it to work. In the back of the cars, this is just, actually I want to give credit, I got to make sure I give credit to Motor Pool, because if anything happens to the cars, they do all the installation for this. I'm just talking about the technology components of it. So what we do, we have an air car in the back of this, and we do a lot of collaboration with Oakland County. So I just want to show you how the cars look in the inside. And here's a fire truck, just to show you a little tablet, or a laptop in this case, that we have in the fire. Actually, this is the life unit, not an engine. They are different. Okay, expectations. There's a daily assumption that things are going to work. And the reason I want to bring this up is because I always say that people think that our department is just magic. Things just magically work. So there's a daily assumption that software just automatically opens, that there's a dial tone when you pick up the phone. So I want people and everyone to understand there's a lot of back-end technology work and planning and routing and a lot of other technical terms I don't want to use that are going on in the background. That people assume that the city website just automatically displays, that printers just print, and so on and so forth. But we do have a lot of collaboration with Oakland County, for Clements, for our police department, and fire, and JIS. We also support the 46th District Court. But there's a lot of firewall programming that needs to occur for a lot of these things to happen. Top 4 core functions of the technology services department. We pride ourselves on uptime and network reliability, maintenance. Any type of software, hardware upgrade that we do, I make sure it has the least amount of impact to the user's experience. So we do a lot of projects, sometimes at 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever it takes for that critical area, because we do have a lot of 24-hour operations in police and fire. Accessibility, we want to make sure that the services that we do support in the back end are available and that you're fully utilizing those services. The last thing, which is not the last thing, but it's customer service. We have a help desk system, and in my department, if you call, 99% of the time, someone's going to answer, even if it's myself. We all want to be readily available for anyone that calls our help desk. Project management, we do a lot of project management in our side, so that's a part of our customer service. Okay, one thing I want to talk about without getting technical, just want to show you that the user's experience is only the top 3 layers of a network model. These 4 layers is what we care about in technology services. This is like the foundation. If none of these layers are working, a user doesn't have an experience. But a lot of people forget about these components because all they care about, or not care about, all they think about is the help desk and that somebody's there to answer their calls. Okay, technology services, here's our organizational chart. I am the technology director. I have 2 people, Tanya Kazan and Nancy Cush, who they reside in the police department building, but they also do other critical functions. Tanya does telephones and a slew of other things. Nancy Cush, she's our database analysts. And I do want to take some time just to talk about these individuals because I'm successful because they are successful. So I want to make sure I give them a lot of credit. So Nancy Cush, she does our BSNA applications and a slew of other things. I mean, I can't tell you everything that they do, but I just want to make sure I give them credit. This network engineering position is vacant. It's been vacant now for 3 years. So I want to give Renee Hinojosa credit because there's no way I can do all of this by myself. So he steps in and he helps me out a lot on the back end, those 4 layers that are critical. And also, I just want to show you the type of commitment that you have with your employees. Tim Barron, he left for a better opportunity 3 years ago. He teaches at Schoolcraft College, but he comes back 1 day a week when he can, sometimes it's once a month. But he's committed to the city and he comes back and helps me. So we also have built a lot of friendships in our department as well. Wendell Gramlich, he's my system support specialist. He pretty much does a lot of my projects. I'm like the main project manager, but I assign a lot of things to him, and he pretty much nails a lot of things for me. Judy Wang, she's my database analyst in addition to Nancy Cush, but Judy Wang, anything you think of and you can imagine, she can turn into fruition. She's really good with databases. Anthony Brown, he's new to our team. I don't think he has 6 months in, but he's a great asset to our team as well. I know I mentioned that customer service is our primary goal, but the help desk position is vacant right now. So I want you to understand the commitment that all of us have, that we're all pitching in, and keep in mind, everybody on my staff is a union employee, except for this position right here that is vacant. So I've never had any problems managing any of them. We all pitch in, we just get the job done. But I really want to give a lot of credit to my staff. All right. Thank you. What do these 7 full-time employees support? So we support 550 computers, we support over 700 telephones, and we also have over 100 plus cell phones. We also support every computer, phone. We have network closets on the municipal campus, which is here, and we have 11 remote buildings, including the DEA, which has a wireless access point to one of our fire stations. So I want to take a moment. I'm going to still try to speak loud and project a little bit, but it's on our city's website. Actually, I already have it open in the background. Actually, let me just. I want to show you out here what we support. Sometimes it's easier to see. We support all of these departments, 46th District Court, assessing, you can just look over them, Cable 15, even though Cable 15 does have a separate tech area. The library has their technology department, but we still support their telephones, so if something breaks, we have to go over there and fix their phones or replace them. We have Parks and Recreation, Public Works, Police, etc. And all of that transforms into business initiatives. So I think sometimes you can see a list of everything we do. It'll give you an idea of how much we really have to know when we pick up that phone. And we're always switching gears. We might be working with one person about email and then someone else calls about something else, and we just always have to be sharp and on our toes. So we do support the fire department, mobile equipment, the municipal court again, network security, parks and rec systems, etc. And you can just read those. Close it? I think I closed it. Let's jump back to this real quick. Okay. Sorry about that, I closed out of it. Okay, so that's what we support, and you can take a look at the website later. A few facts I want to go over very briefly. In 2004, and mind you, I started with the city in 2005, so this predates me. So 2004, before I arrived, there were 11 people in the technology services. And the police department was supported by a totally different division. They were called civilian operations. And I think they had three people in that department. Since 2007, which is since I've been here, technology services, we support the entire police building. We've added 48 patrol cars, and we also support the downtown police station at Northland. Audits, I just want to give my staff recognition as well, and myself, that we've passed every FBI audit, every Michigan State Police audit, and those audits came about because we take care of the police department, and Plant Moran, which is for our financials. And so all of these audits, they challenge every layer of that networking model that I showed you, all 7 layers. Foresight, we plan all of our maintenance very timely, and we've had 0 network outages since my arrival in 2015. I do want to talk about some foresight. Proactive initiatives. We have, without anybody asking us, we've given our employees the ability to remote in. We're doing more with less department heads for sure. So all department heads, if they need to access anything, we've set that up for them. For the Parks and Recreation, all the buildings and picnic shelters, one of my friends was in DC and he wanted to rent something. And I said, wouldn't it be nice if we could have a virtual tour of all of our properties? So I had my staff go out. We videotaped every room that we have for P&R. I had them go to every picnic shelter, just so that if anybody wants to look at our P&R Parks and Recreation rentals, that they can do that without coming on the premises. So my staff did that. We built an intranet, unified messaging. Just talk about the intranet for a second. I don't want to keep running back and forth because I don't have a microphone over there. But the intranet is something that is on premise that can only be accessed from the outside if we give you permission. But that's where you can find a lot of different things for city employees, and it's our announcements and informational portal. Unified messaging is a neat feature. I'm rarely at my desk, but if someone were to send me a voicemail, it comes on my cell phone because I have everything transferred from my email on my cell phone. So that is a very efficient way to get business done. Nobody asked us to do it, we just set that up. I'll just jump down. We did the project manage the website redesign that we have today. We have Wi-Fi in all of our fire stations so that when the paramedics go out and they do a run, as soon as they pull into the engines, it automatically uploads. We've implemented a fax server. So if I want to receive a fax in my email, we did that without any initiative. Cloud computing. Cloud is just like a buzzword. I just want you to know we've been doing cloud computing before it was a buzzword. One area is with our email. Our email goes to a cloud service first. It's scrubbed for viruses and malware, and then it comes to our site. We also did a new hire transfer form. Other implemented initiatives. We extended the Wi-Fi to multiple city locations. So we have Wi-Fi in this room. Next door, we have it in the police department lobby, sports arena. We have it at Human Services. We have it in the court for people that are coming to do jury duty. So I pretty much expand that out around the city. Citizen Services is another portal. It's for people that, since he's videotaping, it's citizenservices.cityofsouthfield.com. That's a location where people can go for residents. If you want to pay your water bills online, we've set that up for you. You can also have inquiry only if you don't want to pay. For our vendors that do business with the city, you can go to this website, you can register, and you can check to see if we've paid your bill, if we've received your invoice, or if a purchase order has been applied or sent to you. All that can be checked from this website for our vendors. Our employees can go out there to check their timesheets, their leave pay, they can look up their W-2 forms, and has a slew of history out there for the employees as well. The police department, these are just a couple of projects. I've mentioned one of them. Public Works, we've helped with the fuel pumps just recently. And mind you, most of you already know that I managed the mobile site, the mobile app project, and a couple other things that I did. So I can't put everything up here, but these are just some highlights. One big thing that we did recently was the real time that we set up between our server and BSNA. So if someone has a code violation or tax information, you can go out to the BSNA's website and they'll get it instantaneously. We have Parks and Recreation. You can have online class registration. And the last thing I'll just jump down to is the fillable forms. That's pretty much a really big project, and I'll use an example of Parks and Recreation. So in the future, if someone wants to register their child for a camp, we can email them one link and it'll be a packet. So that packet will have 3 forms they can fill out online, and once they submit it, it'll come internally to city staff. So that's just a convenient way to stop people from coming on premise if they can't, or if they want another method. And we're also going to do the same thing with the employment application as well. I know you want me to hurry up, but I'm trying. Okay.
I get all night.
All right. I do too, so I'll just keep talking. All right, the things you don't see. So the other projects I just wanted to mention, those are just pretty much truly an overview. But these are things that we do behind the scenes to keep everything running. Again, if we don't do this back-end support, I mean, help desk is important, but it means nothing if these things aren't working. So we have firewall upgrades and maintenance, server maintenance, routers and switches. Again, this is going to be the next item rather on the agenda that I'm going to talk about. We have to keep the back end fresh and support it. We have the fiber for the iNet. That's the institutional network that Comcast manages right now. But I also have fiber that's on premise that I support, not Comcast. And we do all the network cabling. We do telephones, antivirus, uninterruptible power supplies. We manage the power load in the closets and temperature control and network monitoring. So the network monitoring piece, I receive emails on my cell phone pretty much all day long from my servers communicating with me. And some of them are false positives, but the network monitoring is working. Help desk versus projects. And I just gave you the statistics for 2015. We solved in our system 1,715 help desk tickets, and we completed 54 projects. I just want to tell you that this number, of course, is not accurate because, you know, we're constantly getting called for password resets, for, you know, just in passing, people asking us to assist them, and everything does not get logged. But this is what's in our system. We processed 83 new hires in 2015 and 16 terminations. So the definition of a help desk ticket for us is anything that is resolved within 48 hours. Projects are things that I deem require a collaboration effort with other departments, or it takes more than 48 hours. And last year alone, we had 54 projects. I mean, pretty much I just want you to understand that we're never done with projects. Even when I think I'm done, a department will call me and they have ideas, and you know, a lot of their ideas we have to implement. I was going to take this slide out, but I want to show you, this was our computer room when I arrived in 2015, and I'm just showing you pretty much just to show you how well we do project management. We had zero downtime, but we took our computer room from this to this. So I just want to show you just a glimpse of that, just so you can see how we do our projects, and we try to do them with minimal impact to the users. Pretty much, I just want to everybody knows this fast just isn't fast enough anymore. So there's a big paradigm shift that people want things instantaneously. I was telling an example before, years ago we had to wait 3 days to receive an envelope in the mail, and that was okay, people waited. Now, if you don't receive an email in 3 seconds, the help desk is ringing. I sent the email, they didn't receive it. So in order to speed up our computers, we're gonna upgrade our desk phones, and that goes back to the voice over IP initiative. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to go more to cloud services. Because my staff is small, we only have 7 people, Office 365 is a great initiative that we're going to do this year in 2016. Every user is going to receive 50 gigabytes of email storage, and they're going to have 1 terabyte of file storage, which is a lot. All city employees will have Skype for Business, and it will be unlimited, HD video conferencing, and they'll be able to access Microsoft Office anywhere. Technology master plan is needed. It's very difficult because I am a functional department head. I don't just like sit up there at the high level. I help and I back up every staff member on my staff. But it requires input from every department. So what I'm going to do is over the next year or less, as I find time, I want to meet with each department. I'm going to start building this master plan. Because what we do in technology services is not for us, it's really for the departments. So you can't have a master plan. I mean, I can give you a master plan of what I want, but if a department head doesn't want to use it, or it doesn't fit into their business plan, it's just a plan. It doesn't really mean anything. We have tried to fill this network engineering position 2 times already, and we're still having difficulty filling it. So we've already made 2 attempts. If we try again, it will be a 3rd. So I do know one is needed, but I do want to reiterate to you that a lot of things in my field is not directed by me anyway. You might try to go buy an iPhone 4 and they'll say, we're not selling that anymore, you have to buy the next version. And that's pretty much how it works in our field as well. We're dictated by the industry and it's moving, you know, pretty quickly. So, technology does not work without electricity. So we expect for the electricity bill to get paid. It does not work with without heating and cooling. The temperature can overheat, and in the same regard, if it gets too cold, it will malfunction as well. And people. So a lot of things that we do is all for the residents, it's all for the employees, because what we do means nothing if nobody's using it, learning it, and analyzing it. In summary, technology services touches every facet of business. We are a support mechanism that delivers technology resources to city departments to better service the residents of the city of Southfield. While we may be frequently mentioned, we are always actively working behind the scenes. And that's pretty much it. We consider ourselves a partnership between the departments, residents, everybody. And that's my little cute little picture.
Okay. Mr. Cassie?
It wasn't fast enough.
I can only speak so
Under
fast.
Parks and Rec,
Yes.
can you get ice time online?
Well,
And can you get golf on
we already have golf online. We've actually switched from the system that I was supporting to Golf Now. So golf will be available, and it should be available right now. It is available right now, I'm sorry, through Golf Now. As far as the ice, you'll have to speak with Doug Block, and I can work with him if that's something that Parks and Recs or you all decide to tell us to do, to see if it's possible. But I think last time that was mentioned, Doug mentioned that there's other parameters besides just online that you might have, to still come on premise to have a discussion about. But that really is not something I feel comfortable answering, even though I think I tried to answer it. I shouldn't answer that question.
But, I've mentioned this many times, I have a lot of friends who play hockey, and they live in Troy. So they get their cell phone out, and they say, 3 o'clock in the morning is still open, and they get their time. And when we went on a tour with Parks and Rec a year ago, 2 years ago, they said that they were gonna work on that. The amount of money that you're losing by not providing that service to get online and to release the rent, ice time is costing Parks and Recreation money. And I think that, they're hurting for money, and I don't understand why they don't take one of the premium ways of getting money by having somebody get ice time online. And it's expensive, and it brings a nice revenue, Parks and Rec.
Yeah, that on-class registration has been available for 5 or 6 years now.
What's that?
The Parks and Recreation, the class portion of it.
Yeah.
But I'll make a note and I'll talk to Doug Block, and we'll see what we can do. Or
In these other cities, ice time is all taken. So people are always on trying to find ice time, especially at a reasonable hour.
Okay.
And I think that Parks and Recreation should be using those things that are available to them to get more revenue into their department, and they should be open to that.
And keep in mind, like I was trying to stress in my presentation, like we'll help any department, but we're really the enablers. So, but I will talk to that department to see if that's something they want to do. But it's nothing I can force, but definitely.
I know that, I'm
Okay.
just trying to get the answer, and then I come down on Parks and Rec, Mr. Block, that by not getting this online so that he can get more revenue in his department. I mean, he should be looking for every way in which to get revenue, because he keeps going to the fund balance.
I'll work with him.
Okay.
Mr. Brightwell?
Laverne, you did an excellent presentation, and I sat with you, and we went through lots of very educational. But what is the functioning of a network engineer here in the South? What would be the function of it?
There's a long job description, but it's pretty much just maintaining all of our firewall rules, making sure we don't get hacked. I mean, I don't know if you've seen all the things in the media that's going on, but secure data security, supporting the voice over IP infrastructure. Our phone system is very complicated, and even like this project I'm gonna talk about the next phase, we have hardware all over the city. And I don't wanna get technical, but there's ways you have to segment all the traffic, so that, yes, yes.
Mr. Mendelman.
I agree with everyone. I did appreciate the presentation. I know that we've spoken before about different technology ideas or different things that may be able to be used within the city. And, you know, a lot of it always comes down to budget. But watching your presentation, I have a couple more ideas, so I may be calling you later this week about different things.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good thing?
Good thing.
Good thing, okay. I know we've talked before.
By the way, thank you, Lynn, I think it was very good presentation.
Any other questions? Comments?
Excellent.
It was good,
Very
good presentation.
Yeah, excellent.
Fred kept elbowing me and saying that he was ready to apply for the network engineering job.
He's on a salary.
Now. Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now that you've softened this up,
Okay, yeah.
the next item on our agenda.
Now I'm asking for action. Okay. All right, I just kept the presentation going, but you should have a letter before you for receipt of proposals for Cisco switches and voice router technology infrastructure upgrade and enhancements. Pretty much, in 2008, your honorable body approved $800,000 of investment for all of the locations that I support around the city. Due to the foresight of our department, we've been able to leverage all of that equipment. So this request right here is just to replace a couple of areas. So we did receive 8 years of useful use of this technology. I think that's phenomenal. We're not replacing everything, so the other items that we have, we're gonna keep gaining efficiencies by having 8 additional years of equipment without replacing it. This request that you have before you will be handled in 2 phases. Why? Because of resources, and 2, to minimize the impact to the users. Phase 1 is the Cisco switch replacements. It's going to replace all the equipment we have in the closets for fire headquarters, human resources, which also includes other departments like purchasing. We have public works, which is over at the yard on Clara Lane. Accounting, treasurer assessing, the police department. They have 2 closets. We're going to replace the west, and we're going to have building and code enforcement. All of that equipment is going end of life, and support ends July 31st, 2016, which is why that is going to be phase number 1. Phase number 2, our entire voice infrastructure must be replaced. It impacts every city building and every city department. It affects your dial tone, it affects the library as well because they're on our phone system. So I don't know if you know, even the call handlers where it says press 1 for, for water, press 2 for trash pickup. All of that is included in this. We have SRST at different locations, and what that means. Earlier in my other presentation, nothing is plugged into a power outlet anymore. Everything plugs into our equipment in the back rooms. So if power goes out and our UPSs deplete their time, this technology will have an analog line, so in the event of an emergency, they can still pick it up and at least dial 911 and get an outside line. So that's what that's for. It also will impact fax services and a slew of other things like voicemail and other areas. That support ends October 31st, 2016, so we'll be doing that after I complete phase 1. So this one will be done. I'll work, make sure it's not around election time, but we're gonna have to find a time to do this. I'm thinking at the end of August, and the other project will get launched as soon as possible. The bid process, it went out to bid February 16th. March 4th, NetTech, a Presidio company, submitted the only acceptable bid response. The cost, phase 1, switch replacements, the hardware is $152,000. The professional services is $5,000. That's for a company to come in and help with all the programming and replacement of all the equipment. Phase 2 is voice routers and the backup solution. Hardware is $82,000, and the professional services is $12,800. I do just want to elaborate before a question comes up, or maybe not. I just want to explain. It's easy. I don't want to say none of this is easy, but from a technology standpoint, it's easier to update and replace a switch. It's very complicated to update voice routers, because you have all the calling plans, the calling patterns. So when you dial 911, there's a lot of things you have to test, and there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. So you might see that it's $152,000 for hardware, it's such a nominal cost, but I just wanted to explain why. This space right here is gonna be very complicated, and we have to strategically plan that before we touch that project. After the bid process, because I want to make sure we got the best value for our hardware, it takes a lot or a long time for us to try to sell our equipment. So after I got the bid back, I went to Cisco and I asked for a trade-in value, and this is what they came back with. The trade-in value for all of our hardware is going to be $20,625, and that's for all the equipment for phase 1 and for phase 2. So with that trade-in value, there's no check cut, but what happens, the vendor that won the bid, the dollar amount of the trade-in will be deducted from their bid response of $235,000. So the total investment for this project is $214,380.90. Okay, so pretty much I'm requesting consensus to move forward with this item on the consent agenda for April 25th, 2016. Are there any questions?
Mr. Fakasi.
But it has nothing, I'm in favor of this, but if Comcast provides our INET, today, doesn't it?
Just the fiber, I mean.
Fiber, so if they decide to quit, what is our, what do we do?
Well, we're still in negotiations with
No,
them.
but what if we do? What if
Well,
they say no?
what Laverne and I have talked about with administration, that is ultimately, we may want to just build our own. But to the extent that we can continue deferring that so many years down the line, and that's what we're working with negotiations, we're deferring that year by year. We're into roughly 2024, I think, is kind of where we're talking now, maybe longer. So we're trying to keep what we have as long as we can, knowing that potentially the best thing for us is maybe just build our own.
Well,
Because
is somebody budgeting?
Yeah, they've actually,
On a
you
regular
budget $1
basis,
million.
so when we
Yes.
get to that.
There's $1.5 million
Fire.
set aside already for it.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
So that contingency is certainly in our stream of
And
consciousness.
what is it going to cost?
Well, we did an RFP already initially before even the Comcast negotiations began, and that's where we got that number from, the 1.5 million.
And again,
And just,
the hope is that potentially by mid-2024.
when I retire, remember?
No.
No, just kidding.
But who knows what the technology will be? You know, it could be
We
something
talked about
totally
that.
different than fiber. So again, I think to the extent we can keep putting that back and we can get Comcast to agree with that, you know, it helps us, because then we don't necessarily have to worry about it. Maybe something really cost-effective will come
What does
along.
Internet 2 do? They're building this thing over here, this,
Internet
and they,
2.0,
Get back
yeah,
up.
that company.
Oh, that was 1, 2, 3?
yeah, well, yeah, they're working
Yeah,
on
yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Well, 123.net, we're already doing another project with them. They're helping us with our internet.
But can they do the same thing that we're getting from Comcast?
Sure, I think they could build fiber,
Yeah.
right?
They were a part of that. They did, 123.net, they did respond to that other prior bid that we
They
did.
had all the educational and municipalities and.
Sure.
But the
all
difference
that.
is we wanted our own private fiber. A lot of companies are into leasing, and leasing would be very expensive for the city.
President
we'll
will
have
have free.
You don't have your own, so that
Exactly, we don't have
for
total
police
control over
department
it.
purposes, security
Yeah,
purposes.
actually, for this right here, the INET only affects fire headquarters and the yard. All the other ones are fiber that I support, not Comcast. Anything that's on this campus, my staff handles the support for the fiber.
But for example, the DDA you do without fiber.
The
And so
DDA, I
new
actually do with
technology
fiber.
may eliminate the need for fiber by 2024.
But the DDA, I have wireless that goes to a fire station that uses that fiber to get back here. So I do use fiber for the
Part
fire.
of the run?
I do.
Okay. So you
But
go
I
to
have wireless
firewall
just
and then leap over.
Exactly,
Okay.
that's what I do. I like that, Brad.
Laverne, can you go back to the slide where you show the 7 pieces? This
That's
is
right.
the third time I've seen the presentation
7 pieces of.
of the
Seven
different
layers.
Oh, okay.
Because what I should have asked you was to put a value on each of those layers.
Oh, my.
I mean, if we were to replace it, here we are making a decision. And maybe that's a future thing as you work on your CIP
So this right
sheets.
here, this physical layer is, all this stuff is what we do as far as, I don't wanna say programming, but that's all the network engineering that has to happen to make sure you don't have, slow network traffic or collisions and, it takes 10
So
hours.
what's
for-
our total investment there? Do you have a,
I don't really wanna guess, but I know I give that number to risk management every year.
I thought-
I know it's over $2 million
and
with all the UPSs.
2
all
years
the-
ago, we put in the fire suppression.
Yes,
That was a
fire
big
suppression
number.
system, exactly. Heating and cooling everywhere. I mean, it's I say 2 million, but it's probably more. Yeah, because I know I give a number to risk management. I just can't think of it right now. I can say 10 million to make me sound important, but.
And in what layer is our, the purchase we're making now?
This layer right here.
That's okay.
$10 million is a lot for a 25-year-old to be managing.
I know.
No, she said 5 years, right, so you'd be 30.
Oh, I'm 30, that is correct.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. Fred?
Yes.
Phase 1, the sport ends in July 31st. Is there any advantage to, and do we have the money to pay for the replacement this year in this budget and not move it over into next year's budget? Is that the plan or not?
Well, and I.
Phase 1 is in this year, it's already budgeted. Per the letter, I didn't go over the whole letter.
Okay.
But the letter, this right here, I budgeted in this fiscal year, because I knew it was becoming end of life. So that's already in the budget. So this
Okay.
is in fiscal year 16, the one we're living in right now.
Okay.
And this is for you to approve at the budget adoption for next fiscal year, July 1st,
Okay, so it's
2016.
split in 2 parts.
It is,
Two
definitely.
parts at a time, and will happen simultaneously. The first step, then the next step.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm a planner.
okay. I have another question.
Okay.
Years ago, with electronic equipment, they used halon as a fire suppressor. What do you use now?
It's not that, I can't think of the name of it. It's some type of gas, I know. They say when you hear some noise, we better run. I can't think of it, it's not that. Like before, I know, I gotta stop joking, I don't mean to joke. But before the helium tanks were up in the ceiling, that's no longer now. It's actually in our computer room. I didn't bring a picture of it. I do have one on my cell phone.
Halon.
Halon, yeah, Halon, yeah, I'm thinking about balloons. I just had a birthday, actually, Saturday, so.
You're 31.
Yeah, no, I just turned 30. I just turned 30. I don't know. I tell so many tales
Right.
of my age. So
Okay.
yeah, it's so many
But
different,
I
and
think Halon
facilities
ended up-
maintenance helped us with that project. I gotta give them credit too.
I think Halon ended up corroding the contacts or something.
I don't know, but I know it's not even acceptable now.
Yeah.
Like now, it's just, those tanks are sitting like, I can stand right next to them. Before, they had to be up in the ceiling and the exhaust had to go out the building. It's not like that anymore.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did a tour, it was about 4 of them, right?
Yes, oh yeah,
On the walls.
thank you.
Yeah, so I'll test if they are there.
Yeah, Councilman Brightwell stopped by to visit me and he did a walkthrough. I encourage all of you, if you want to see our data center and all our closets, and it's pretty exciting, right?
They're well worth it.
I'm a great tour guide, yeah. Well, no, it's just all the lights and Christmas, yeah.
Okay. All right, this will move forward to our consent agenda for the 25th.
Thank you.
We're only approving the part that was in this year's budget.
Phase 2.
For phase 1, we're not approving.
She's
We're
asking.
gonna approve both of them, but we're funding phase 1
Okay.
this year.
In May, it'll do the other.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. She's the first of the departments that I've asked Fred to bring forward to us to tell us what they do, bring us up to date on what they do. She's the first department to do that. Next item on our agenda is an investment advisory agreement between Robinson Capital Management and the City of Southfield.
Good evening, honorable elected officials. I wanted to present this evening to you, just first of all, I want to give a background of for some of the newer council people.
in terms of our city financial infrastructure. And it's comprised of 4 key funds, and we have advisors for each of those. We have 2 pension systems, the fire and police pension system and the employee retirement system. And then we also have retiree healthcare, and then we have the municipal funds. The advisor for the fire and police is George Rita from Asset Strategies. We have Bogdan Group, Chris Kuhn for the employee retirement system, Greystone, Michael Holycross for the SERS, and for the municipal cash, we had since 1993 we had Cutwater Asset Management, previously known as MBIA. They were with the city for many, many years, but in 2015 they were acquired by Bank of New York, and in the process of them being acquired, the investment strategy that Bank of New York entertained with for the municipal funds group was different than the normal system that Cutwater had with us at the city of Southfield. And so in the process, we were notified that because of that takeover, that the contract would not be renewed and that we would need to search for a new advisor to help us with our municipal funds. So what we were able to utilize, there was recently a search that was done by the city of Grand Rapids. And City of Grand Rapids conducted a search together with Asset Strategies, who's our advisor for the financial funds as well, for all our financial aspects. And there were 14 firms that responded to that search. And there were 3 finalists. And they selected Robinson Capital as their advisor for the municipal funds. Out of all the 14 firms that responded, and the 7 that were written up in the report that were considered qualified candidates, the only candidate that actually was based in the state of Michigan was Robinson Capital. They're located in Grosse Pointe Farms, and they are very, very well versed in Michigan financial laws. And the state of Michigan dictates what the city municipal funds can invest into. There's a state law called PA 20. PA 20 says that we cannot take any undue risk, and we're limited to either agency bonds or treasury bonds or municipal bonds, as well as also banks that are located in the state of Michigan. They must have a presence in the state of Michigan, otherwise we cannot invest with them. And so, in addition to that, the city maintains a higher standard than that. And we have our own investment policy, which we bring before council on an annual basis, and it gets reviewed, and we tighten it up even more to put additional restrictions and higher credit qualities that we look for. Even though we can invest in technically any Michigan municipality, but we set it at a higher standard that we want to be able to sleep at night knowing that our investments are safe and that we are not taking any undue risk with our daily cash funds. And in return, we actually we've outperformed the entire state, not only that, but the entire country practically with our funds. We've been in the top 10% for a short-term and long-term basis. And it's through the close interaction between the council finance group and my office, as well as also the advisors that we work with as a team, we were able to do very, very well. We were able to utilize different financial tools, vehicles that were available to us to keep us safe, because right now we're in a very challenging situation because interest rates are very, very low. If you make a longer term investment and interest rates rise up, the value of that investment will, on paper at least, be written down quite substantially. If interest rates and value of the investment are on an inverse relationship. The higher the interest rates go up, the lower the value of that investment that you made goes, and so vice versa. If interest rates go down, the value of your investment goes up. So I don't want to confuse with too deep, but we were able to utilize the Oakland County Government Investment Pool, and that was a vehicle that was able to give us liquid cash. It's similar to like a money market fund, and we're able to earn about 1% on that, on daily cash money that we're able to take in and out on a daily basis, as well as also working with the different banks for our CDs and the municipal funds advisors, such as Cutwater, and now we're looking to switch it over to Robinson. We have representatives from Robinson here this evening two representatives, and there was an information item that was in your packet, and it gives you some biographies on the people from the firm, the two main portfolio managers. We have Greg Prost and Tal Gunn, and they have been in the municipal investment field for a very long time, and they are able to answer any additional questions any council members might have, as well as also a question was asked at the council finance meeting. We had a council finance meeting to discuss this. It was reviewed on April 13th, and at that time, Councilman Fracassi asked if what other municipalities are currently utilizing Robertson Capital. And so I didn't have that information handy at the time, so I asked them and got some additional information. Besides the Grand Rapids contract that they just won, they also were just recently selected by Wayne County. It was the first time that Wayne County went out for an outside advisor. Oakland County doesn't use an outside advisor. Wayne County never used an outside advisor either. Now they decided that they were going to bring in an outside advisor, and they chose Robertson Capital as that firm. In addition to that, Wixom, East Point, Macomb Township, Pontiac, Roseville, as well as some others as well that they're currently working with. And so that is pretty much everything. And there's also copies of some sample reports. They do a very good analysis on all the local banks. And there's a copy of the report. They used, for example, Huntington Bank as an example, because that's one of the banks that the city uses primarily, as well as also they give bond strategies, and then they also talk about Michigan's economic strength. And it's very important because when we invest into Michigan municipal bonds, we want to make sure, even though the bond rating agencies may give it a AA, AAA, whatever it might be, we want to make sure that it's really truthful and it's not just some fluff that maybe they got past the rating agencies, but that they know these the actual structures and they can actually see a little bit more deeper because they're located in Michigan. So that's an important resource available to us. So what we're looking to do is bring this forward to the next council meeting on April 25th as a consent item for approval.
Mr. Prost or Mr. Gunn, either or both of you would like to make any comments?
We are here. We're on the back. Really here to
Would you go to the mic? And we'd like to meet you.
Sure. I'm Greg Prost. This is Tal Gunn.
Tal Gunn.
And we've been working together for over almost 30 years in different capacities. We're excited about getting on board and helping you continue your great performance going forward.
Finance Committee, you went over the situation, have a report?
Yeah, we reviewed the presentation, we quizzed Mr. Gunn and Mr. Post, and also we had a separate meeting with the treasurer and so on to see the detail of the process, how Grand Rapids chose them, and what was the quantitative and qualitative parameters that were used. And that presentation, which was made by George Bitter in asset management and asset strategies, laid out all the particulars. And we quizzed the treasurer quite well with respect to the various steps taken. And also, when Mr. Post was present with us, we questioned him also about some environmental things, and also, well, environmental from an economic standpoint, current day economics. And we felt comfortable that this is a good team, and they'll be a valuable addition to our management, financial management process. So that's pretty much it. We moved it forward with respect to having the full body review it and pass it on, if they see so fit.
So the recommendation is to move forward?
Yes.
Any other council members have a comment? Where's your office at?
Grosse Point Farms.
So you're a stone's throw away. Or a rock throw away, depending on how well.
Depends on what Have a time of strong day. arm.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, this will move forward to our April 25th meeting. Thank you, Mr. Lundberg. Next item on our agenda is Consumers Energy proposed gas transportation, the transport agreement. Okay. Mr. Macarena?
Mr. President, as you're aware, the city of Southfield contracts with Michigan Consolidated Gas simply for the transportation and metering of its natural gas, and instead buys its gas through a Michigan State consortium, which has saved us about $500,000 in the past 9 years. 6 years. Well, every so often the utility revises the contract to reflect changed situations. In this case, the removal of McDonald Towers from the city's bill. So this is simply an adjustment downward of the amount that we're contracting for them to transport. Basically reflects the removal of McDonald Towers. McDonald Towers was about 1,000 million cubic feet, and that's what we're going down by about.
Okay, that's sum and substance of.
That's the
They just
extent.
removing the McDonald Towers and, what's the?
And a corresponding reduction in the amount that we plan to purchase.
Okay.
As part of the purchase of transportation services, the Michigan holds roughly 8.5% of our annual purchase on their side of the gate, which is roughly a month's purchase. We purchase it as we need it.
Okay. Did they change the rate?
The rates were confirmed to be the same. That was one of the things, and we had our consultant check to make sure we were still getting the correct rates based on the size of our facility. So there's no change to anything other than removal of this.
Okay. All right. This will move to our agenda for the 25th.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I have one general question.
Okay.
In reading through, in reading through, it indicated no fiscal impact. But if there's a reduction in usage,
Well,
should we get a reduction in fiscal impact?
the reduction's already occurred. This amendment simply reflects the situation. McDonald Towers has been removed from our contract some time ago. This simply reflects the situation that is present now. So there is no
So
change.
this is just catching up with reality. Okay.
Right, this is just their standard review. They saw we dropped a large facility, lowered our amount, and they reflected that in the contract. That's all.
Okay. The next item is authorization to purchase a replacement vehicle for the fire department.
Mr. President, the fire department is requesting authority to purchase a new GMC Sierra 4x4 crew cab for the amount of $36,180. We also need to add a lighting package for an additional $57.13 and graphics for another $950. The vehicle will be purchased from Red Holman GMC of Westland. This is part of the state bid. We are asking for a Rule 10 on this. This is not a take-home vehicle. It stays in the department. And it also replaces the 2001 Ford Excursion that has 83,000 miles on it. We will be bumping an older vehicle out of the fleet, and then purchasing will be selling that.
I presume that it says before the April 19th deadline?
That's correct.
So it is April, if we order tomorrow, we can still get the deal.
We had a conversation last Thursday with the dealer, and they would honor it if we
We'll
could
be
get,
using
if we
this
could,
vehicle.
pardon?
Who'll be using this vehicle?
Who?
Who will be using this vehicle?
Oh, the battalion chiefs in the department, whoever's on command.
Not command though.
No, not medical.
Oh, command. It says command instead of command. But anyways,
Okay.
I want to move the Rule 10.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Perkowski,
Is that right?
supported by Mr. Brightwell. Do we find an immediate need to act on this issue? Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried.
Chair, I move that we find that we have to
Repurchase?
purchase this item by emergency and by rule 10.
Support.
For the pleasure of the chair.
It's been moved by Mr. Perkowski, supported by Mr. Mandelbaum, that we approve the purchase of the replacement vehicle for the fire department as presented to us. Is there any discussion? Are we prepared to vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried.
Thank you.
All right.
Fred, is there any reason in particular why you went from a SUV to a pickup truck? Just out of curiosity. You had an excursion.
Yeah,
to a pickup truck. Was there any particular reason to have a pickup truck now?
That's what they've historically used. There are different things in the field, the equipment they need to carry.
I mean, excursion's not a pickup truck, is it?
But it has a lot of room in the back, like a
I
pickup.
don't know that.
But at least it's enclosed.
Yeah, for an
Now
excursion
you're-
is
Right.
about as big as a pickup truck with a roof on it.
Right.
Yeah, the only advantage to a pickup truck is if the stuff is taller.
Just throw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably better on gas than that excursion.
Okay, we're at the point where we have communications. Our first person to request recognition is Mr. Gerard Mullen. If you step to the microphone, you have 3 minutes. Your time has started.
Gerard Mullen, Post Office Box 155, Southfield, Michigan 48037. Mr. Chairman, I have a question that I'd like to ask this council through the chair tonight. Why are council's legal notices for public hearings never, not ever, never ever posted by this city council on this city's legal notice bulletin board? And yet, Mr. Chairman, the folks here on council have no problem posting their individual photos of themselves just outside this room, in the hallway, across from the legal notice bulletin board. Why does council post their portraits of themselves, but don't post their notices, their legal notices? Paradoxically, Mr. Chairman, it seems that everybody but this council posts their legal notices in Southfield, on Southfield's legal notice bulletin board. For example, both the state of Michigan and the federal government post their legal notices right outside this room. Even the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Tennessee posts their legal notices in Southfield, on the city of Southfield's legal notice bulletin board. And Tennessee is over 400 miles away from Southfield. If an out-of-district court over 400 miles away can post their notices, their legal notices, a few feet from this room, why, Mr. Chairman, why? Why can't this council, this body, here in this room, do the same thing? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next person that asked for recognition is Ms. Pamela Gerald.
Pamela Gerald, P.O. Box 155, Southfield, Michigan 48037-0155. My telephone number is 248-346-0439. I want to make 2 really quick comments. The first comment is, I remember, and I'm not sure if it was the 4th person, but I know our council president, our mayor, and city clerk was on the steps, and it may have been the city administrator, but I'm not sure, so I stand to be corrected for the city administrator, was on the steps of City Hall advocating with the workers of McDonald's, saying that they deserved a pay raise. I totally agreed with that. So much so that I'm wondering if we can get that same type of cooperation on the steps of City Hall for our very own. It's always good to help other people, but it's so much better to help the people within your house. I hear you guys talking about in-house, doing for Southfield, doing for Southfield employees, appreciating Southfield and their employees. So how about if we get some front door action to say, we're gonna settle this contract. We're gonna do right by our employees. TPOEM, 3636 and 329, and any other unions that you haven't settled. The next thing I wanted to just give kudos to Terry Crow for again bringing in Robert Gibbs. And Robert Gibbs did a wonderful presentation in the library, and he said that the city should tell developers where to go for certain developments, and not to have developers to say where they want to put things if it doesn't fit with the character of that particular area. I think that our city has been failed by our economic development director, which is a single-handed person, and also the DDA director for failing to develop the Northland and other particular areas. I think we need to take director off of those positions, and those positions should now fall under the auspices of city planning. So another name for that department would be Planning and Economic Development, and let Terry Krogh run that department. I don't think we need those two positions, those two directors with those high salaries, credit card perks, cars maybe, and almost $100,000. Now we talk about saving money and being frugal. If you downsize some of these positions that are not productive, put them under different departments, you would have money for raises, you would have a little bit leeway for insurance for employees, and we could move on. Again, you can't move on to a visioning session plan without doing and settling old business. And those contracts have got to be settled. Some of these new council people, you ran on the auspices that you were going to work and do things for the employees. I'm gonna hold you to the task. And I'm gonna give you like another 30 days to try to appeal to your city administrator to do something. And then I'm gonna start calling out the people that ran on that platform. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Mr. Fred Bunker. He left?
Yeah.
Okay. The next person that asked for recognition is Mr. Harold Hill.
Hello.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll try to be quick.
Okay, would you give your name and an address for the
Yes.
records?
My name is Harold Hill. I live at 22300 Seminole Street, Southfield, Michigan, 248-262-7911, phone number. And thank you for letting me speak. I know that a lot of people come to the Southfield City Council meeting with nothing but negatives. For a change, I think I have something positive, because I think that you're hardworking and do a lot of things. So I was really proud of the efforts that I heard at the April 11th meeting, when you took the issue of stop the drilling in the city of Southfield to court. Because I thought we were just gonna roll over and let it happen. The DEQ just came in, dotted their I's, crossed their T's, and had their way with us. Like they did, well, I won't say in Farmington, but in Farmington it made it even worse, like costing them money. So I want to commend you on the fact that we're still fighting. We're going to take it to court, and they're using the legal system in a positive manner. So, Mayor Seibert, City Council, I want to say thank you for that, because we want to make sure that our city is safe. That's why so many people came out to the school system, to be sure of it. They do not want this, and it can be, we want a healthy city, healthy and safe city, and we don't want to end up like our sister city to the north of us, which, yes, to save a few dollars, what was it, $2 million? It cost them irreparable damage to the people of that city. And Southfield's not been one of those kind of cities. We stand up and fight for what we want, positive or negative. So I'm happy to bring the positive side today. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I heard something else mentioned today, I just want to, before I leave you. If you don't plan to get better, you're bound to get worse. So keep that planning together, because it's a true factor.
Sure.
You have to plan it. All right, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda as printed. Is there anything else that comes, Mr. Mayor?
This Saturday, starting at 7:30, kicking off at 8 a.m. is Comcast Cares Day. And it is in Beech Woods Park. It's a partnership with Comcast, the city, and Parks and Rec is involved, as well as the Southfield Parks and Garden Club. We'll be doing litter pickup on Beach Road, as well as lots of projects around Beech Woods Park. And Shannon Doolin, who is their government relations person, has asked me to find out if there's anybody that's coming for RSVP. So we only heard from Michael and John Greenon. I don't know if anybody else is coming, but they'd like to know if you plan to be there. Okay.
I don't know just that.
Okay. It's, registration starts at 7:30, and then the kickoff
In the morning?
rally starts at 8 a.m. I'll be there.
That's when I go to bed.
Yeah, I know. Anyhow, I just need to give them the RSVPs tomorrow, so.
I'm sure they won't turn anyone down.
I'll
that
take
shows
it
up.
that it's, John and myself will be there. Okay, thank you.
Is there anything else? Mr. Perkowski?
Reynolds Building, I went by it again. I can't get an answer really as to what these owners are doing with it. I'm very concerned about the product that is on the building. It could be scrapped pretty easy. It's not protected. I told Terry to make sure that you get a fence around it or something to protect it. It looks isolated and empty and in bad shape. And it's too bad for a historical building like that to be treated in that fashion. And I've been following that son of a gun. Jimmy Blanchard did make it a historical under the Michigan. I don't think we did as a city, but Blanchard did. And I just want to protect it from it finding its way to the scrapyard. And the other is that this month we'll be 59 years old. 28th of
59, yeah.
All right.
We've come a long way.
Yep. And our best is still
Yet to
ahead of
come.
us.
Yep.
Anything, yeah. Mr. Mandelbaum?
This weekend I was, I don't know if confronted is the right word, but by some residents who live in my neighborhoods, I think section 25 is the official area, but they live right behind the Lincoln Woods wetlands. And every year, every summer, spring, summer, fall, they spray their properties with mosquito repellent, but they said that last year their repellent did not work as well because there's a lot of mosquitoes that are in those wetlands. And with all the concerns of the Zika virus and everything else, they wanted to know if the city can do any type of preventive measures.
Doesn't Oakland County do that?
Yeah, we work before action with Oakland County Health Department in doing that spraying. I need to speak to our stormwater engineer who handles that.
Okay.
And to see if there are additional measures being taken with that virus. And the list yesterday is not showing up in Michigan, but they have an active case in Wisconsin. So there's.
Okay, they have an active case in Wisconsin, but did the mosquitoes in Wisconsin cause the problem? Because the Zika virus is only spread by certain breeds of mosquitoes, and they're not in every state.
Right.
So, first of all, we have to find out, does that breed of mosquito live in Michigan? If it doesn't live in Michigan, we still have the Niles virus that we need to spray for. But I don't want to panic anyone to think that just because there are mosquitoes, that it's necessarily gonna spread the Zika virus.
And-
So I think we need to get that out.
And just so you know, the two people that confronted me, one is a pediatrician and the other is a nurse at Henry Ford Hospital. So they
Mhm.
were, medical professionals.
They're not botanists, so.
No, but they were, and I just didn't know because it's a wetland, if there were any restrictions, because you walk down that whole, anyone whose backyard backs up and it's Mosquito Joe signs, like he's running for political office,
Yeah.
all along the whole entire block, so, just something to think about.
It's pretty early in the year then.
Yeah,
Many
isn't it?
mosquitoes.
There,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, we haven't had that
Mr.
much-
Mosquito Joe is starting his rounds already.
He's already spraying?
He's already, going around the neighborhood getting
We got
people
we
to
got a
sign
spray
up.
for Cassie Swamp over here too.
Glad that you find
Okay,
that out.
we need to check that out. And, spray anyhow for
I'll
mosquitoes.
communicate with Brandy,
Yeah.
and then there is a protocol that Public Works, I mean, we drop them in our storm sewer system, all that, but, and I honestly don't know the answer about these protected wetlands, and do we just go ahead and drop them? Some of them, may be wetlands, but they don't hold water year-round either.
Right.
The Cassie Swamp only holds water for a few days.
That is very sad. Oh, yeah.
Actually, from what I understand, it doesn't take very long for a mosquito larva, the eggs to turn into larvae. But the thing that I'm mostly concerned about is we don't panic our residents. And I think a quick call to the Oakland County Health Department will tell whether that breed of mosquito lives in Michigan or not. Most of the cases that I've heard of are from people that come from very warm climates like Florida. The mosquito was brought in by people that had been vacationing in other countries, but then they either breed with the local mosquitoes or...
All the snowbirds are returning now.
Yeah, that's right. All right, is there anything else to come before the council?
Oh, I just also want to apologize
Yes.
for being tardy. I was coming back from Chicago, my flight got delayed. There was a brake problem. I didn't want to take any chances with the brakes. So,
Okay, anything else? Seeing nothing else to come before the council, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you
Bring
much.
your hot dog in your